And away we go. Hello, welcome everybody. You can tell I'm still coming down off the high from yesterday, so I apologize if it takes me a little bit to get into rhythm, but we'll get there. You guys know I'm here for high energy, and I want to provide that to you. I appreciate everybody joining. It's our normal Big 12 Mafia show night, Tuesday night, but because we're talking about major global stories, specifically around the ACC, I'm going to stick with the sit down brand for tonight and probably tomorrow night with Bob Thompson. Yes, Bob Thompson, Fox Sports president, creator of the Big Ten Network, or at least partner creator, will be joining me tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, so an hour later than this time. And boy, lots to talk about in college sports. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. David McKenzie is supposed to be joining me. Obviously, when you have a guest, sometimes their schedules change immediately, and something happens, and they're late or whatever. But I'm going to bring on Coach Steve here in just a second, and he represents Sidelines UNC. And he'll be able to give us another view at what's going on with the ACC. And obviously, it's a big deal. Everybody knows it. I don't have to really build it up. It is what it is. The ACC is now, I would say, on a precipice of major change. What that change looks like, we don't know. But we soon will. So let's start off the show like we normally do. My name's Nathan Bomber Brown. Bomber is my nickname. Welcome to the show. This is the College Football Mafia Network channel, and I appreciate everybody joining us. We have shows almost every day of the week. Thursdays are open, and Mondays are sort of a wild card, but certainly Tuesday, Wednesday we try to hit. Then we have our big freaking Friday on Friday, obviously, and then Mowing After Dark on Sundays. All generally start at 8 Eastern, except for Big Freaking Friday, which starts at 7 Eastern this time. So make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. I'm going to ask everybody that's on YouTube watching right now, see the scroller at the bottom. I'm encouraging you guys to do me a favor while you're watching on Twitter. Open up another window, go to our main channel, College Football Mafia Network, and subscribe. It really helps us out. We're trying to get to 5,000 subs by the end of the year, slowly but surely. We're not greedy. So we appreciate everybody who does that. I'll ask for that a couple times a show. So I appreciate you doing that. Let's talk about the comments and how they work. Comments, normally everybody can comment. It's free. It's not a big deal. We always take member comments first, unless it's a super chat. And super chats always get read. Doesn't matter what time of the show, as long as they don't come in after the show, and then that's kind of tough. But if it's during the show, I will read those automatically. There's no question about it. Otherwise, we defer to member comments, and then from member comments, we go down to general comments, and that's most everybody else. So I appreciate you being here tonight, and just buckle up. I'll probably be here for at least 90 minutes. I will try to cover as much as I can about the ACC in general, but we do have guests. Hopefully, David McKenzie comes on. He is the ACC exemplar, legal mind, the guy who has really forced everything in the ACC into the open in North Carolina with some of his lawsuits. And I have the utmost respect for him. We don't always agree. In fact, we differ most of the time. But I respect anybody that's willing to put in their time, energy, and certainly their money on the line to represent what they care about. And David certainly does that for the ACC. So everybody sit down, just buckle up, and we'll get to shout outs and whatnot after we do a little bit of, let's do a warm up for a little bit. I'm going to bring him on right now. Coach Steve joins me now. Steve, I was just going to say,
how
college
you doing?
football
Can you hear me?
inside the numbers. Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm in. Okay, cool. So yeah, inside the numbers, it's a little, I do a little, I don't want to pretend to be a writer. I try to be a writer. I do my best. I do weird, wild, interesting stats, college football stuff. If you want to read, you can. You don't have to. I just do it for fun. I like football numbers. I'm a bit of a nerd. But yeah, some people might find it interesting. A couple people do. I don't think that many people do. I don't expect many people will. And that's okay.
Can you clarify your relation to Sidelines
So yeah, I'm one of the admins for the account. I'm picking it up right now. Nobody really had it during the tournament. I figured, why not? Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Do. It's interesting. It's interesting. You can't necessarily always. It's interesting when you're not the only one, but it's a different perspective. I try to be different a little bit, but I also don't want to step on anybody's toes, and that's been interesting. I've done that once or twice already.
That's hard not to do.
Yeah.
You've seen me, right?
And it happens.
It does happen.
It's a learning process. It's a learning
disagreement
process.
isn't bad, right? That's how we grow. No. That's how we move our own experiences, by disagreeing with people and then having conversations. If you want to, you can edit your name, hit those 3 dots next to your name or whatever it is. I can't remember what window you see. And you can edit your name and put SSN UNC in there if you want.
Yeah, if that'd be easier.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take you away, but I'm going to mute you because David McKenzie's coming on, and he's really the guy we need to start with. So we good?
Bring him on.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm just going to mute you. Here we go. All right. David McKenzie. How are we doing?
Doing great. Sitting here, and I'm not in Carolina.
Okay.
Austin, Texas.
Okay.
So thanks for having me on, but I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
How long have I been chasing you down?
A good long while. So,
I'm pretty persistent though, right? I'm fair and
you're fair and you're persistent, and so you leave, in like some of the Twitter sphere, you leave kind comments, and so I'm glad to come on and support your show and talk about the big news from today, I guess.
Well, yeah, I know you're limited on time. I'll give you a second. We'll run through exactly what you want, or certainly what you're representing. But I just want to say this to you. I just mentioned it to Coach Steve. I have total respect for you, for everything that you're doing. You and I don't always agree, but the fact you're willing to put up your own time, your own money, certainly to represent what you think is right and fair, that's a tough place to be, isn't it?
Oftentimes, yeah, but one of the reasons I went into the law was to do the right thing, and helping people in hard situations and speaking truth to power is something that attorneys do, and that's something that I've always done. And so, even here in Austin, that's why I'm here in Austin. So it's just part of the gig.
I appreciate that. So what I'm going to do now is, before David goes, I want David to explain completely where he stands right now with the ACC. I just want to say he's only here for a little while, but if you want to super chat to David, that will get read. Other than that, I'm not going to get to any comments before he has to take off. Okay. David, first tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then kind of catch everybody up on what you think's going on with the ACC right now.
Well, I think most of your viewers know that I'm an intellectual property litigator. I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Full disclosure, so everybody knows, I hold a degree from Duke. I have a kid that goes to Carolina. A spouse that went to Wake Forest in Carolina. My parents went to Virginia Tech, and I'm from Clemson, South Carolina. So if you want to call me an ACC homer, that's probably fairly appropriate.
Okay.
So I've done, the bulk of my career has been in intellectual property litigation, focusing mostly on copyright and trademark disputes, including trial and appellate. I've tried a case before the United States Supreme Court. And then recently in the last year have delved into a lot of First Amendment issues, which is important to me. But to answer your principal question about what do I think of this settlement, I am surprised. I see this personally as a complete, total, unmitigated win for Clemson and Florida State. And I will also add one other school, and that is the University of North Carolina. I know this may upset some of your viewers, but if you were to ask me, even as a Duke grad, I would, assess the ACC and be willing to suggest that I think Carolina is the strongest brand. And so its forbearance and what I think is suing the ACC and sort of sitting back and watching. I mean, it just makes Bubba Cunningham look like a genius. the athletic director at Carolina.
Right.
So the people in Chapel Hill are incredibly happy with this deal because they have a very strong brand. The most recognizable color. I know that some people think that it's actually Columbia blue, but no, it's Carolina blue. And,
Okay.
You'll get into a dispute that, the reason why God made the sky blue is because he loved Carolina blue. And so anyway, I see this as a massive win for Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina. It'd be interesting to see if there was any dissenters in this.
Yeah, we didn't hear about that, did we? The vote itself, we just heard it passed.
We have not, and there was some discussion. I mean, there's part of the problem here is that so much about this has been fairly opaque and a couple of steps removed from the public eye, which is troublesome because you're having public institutions for which taxpayers are supporting those schools. And so if you're going to take the public's money, you got to do things in public. And so we don't know the degree of which, if we have any dissenters or anything like that. I suspect that there has to be. This is such in my view, and I've stated this publicly, a lopsided result. I have myself in my career had lopsided settlements, but it's been when I had really good facts and the law was on my side. This is a situation where I think that, yes, there was this novel argument of sovereign immunity that was being asserted by Clemson and Florida State that has never been asserted to an intellectual property contract, which the grant of rights was. And so that may be some new law there. But, on the whole, I believe that the ACC still to this day, despite the settlement, that the ACC had a good case and that ultimately it folded with a royal flush. Now, were things actually going well for them in Florida? The answer to that is no.
Yeah, that ruling last Friday was a big deal, right?
Yeah, the ruling from the Supreme Court, and I wondered how much that actually played into it. But that was an interlocutory appeal, and interlocutory appeals are never really over. I mean, it was the equivalent of what we call in North Carolina a writ of supersedious, and those are almost never granted. And there's nothing that kept the appellate court and the appellate systems from revisiting, the adverse decisions on a fuller record, though things were certainly not trending well. And it did appear to me that, at least to some extent, at least at the trial court, that this sovereign immunity defense, which is not a recognized contract defense, which you, Bomber and Big 12 Mafia and all that, you guys don't have that as an option as a contract defense. Only the state entity has that as an option as a contract defense. And it's never really been asserted before, except in a very few cases in Oklahoma and Texas, one notable involving Mike Leach, where it didn't void the contract, but it definitely was, at least in the Mike Leach case, it required an express waiver to sovereign immunity. And the grant of rights agreement did not contain that, nor did the ACC Constitution. So that was going to be a problem that they were going to have to litigate their ways through. But to see, I mean, and I know there are some commentators out there that see this as everybody winning.
I can't see that.
I disagree, because and the reason for how everybody is winning is because everybody can participate in this new, as I think the president of Clemson said, innovative formula for media rights distribution based on certain metrics connected to viewership.
Okay.
With Boston College, can win just as much as Florida State or Carolina. The reality is that it would take Boston College many moons.
Right. They have the potential. That word potential is out there, right?
And that was the only real way to do this deal, was in a way that to either add more to it so that everybody benefits. I've posted about this. It's called consideration. Or do it in a way that, and I'm still not even convinced that it does that. I'm not even convinced that this settlement agreement, not having access to it, so I'm having to speculate, that it does get around this consideration element that I have been pretty clear about needing to be met. So every appearance that I have is that this is a unilateral win for Florida State and Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina. I'm assuming Virginia, got on board with this. I don't know, but there's a lot of questions to be answered as a result of this. And it's right now we're just relying on what they're telling us. We don't know. Now, I will say to you that it is possible, and this is all speculation, and I can't stress that enough. It is possible that as I mentioned, that another thing happened and that a bomb went off in Discovery. Now, I have had that before where somebody gets to an email or I get to an email and there's just bomb that is just like, wow, we got a dog of a case. So a strong case went to a dog really quickly. It's possible that happened. And then the other possibility is that the ACC just felt like its odds before the judiciary in Florida was actually quite low. And I will hold out that was a possibility as well. Now, things were trending fine for them in North Carolina, and you did have a sort of a situation that I believe is extremely unfortunate of home field advantage, and where at least because judges are by and large very fair people. They're very fair-minded people. They want to actually reach the right result. They're not looking to create new law and the like. That I do not believe that necessarily happened entirely in Florida. There was actually new law created on the principle of priority involving state entities. And it did appear that the trial court was at least open to this notion of sovereign immunity as a contract offense. And so maybe the ACC thought, we're going to lose in Florida, and we're going to be litigating this matter for years, and we'll create this sort of full faith and credit clause problem under the United States Constitution. And we're going to be, fighting about this for years and no end in sight, whatever. But, that's part of high stakes litigation, is what I have a case that I filed in 2015 that is still going on today.
Wow.
So, it was like a settlement in the second round of a boxing match that was going to go 12 rounds.
Right.
And so why it happened the way it did on terms that I think, that I do not think are, equal to the entire conference. And let's give it to Florida State and Clemson. They got every single thing they wanted.
Right.
And so that's, to answer your principal question, that's my general take on the settlement.
Okay. I have like 1,000 questions. We're not going to get to all of them tonight. I do have a super chat question that I promised to read, though. So I'll do that one. MBM, who's a member, $10 super chat, says, if realignment plays out, does there exist a scenario where Duke would join the Big 12? That certainly was on my list of questions. What does Duke do next?
I wish that, I knew the answer to that question. And thank God I don't, because my specialty is in intellectual property,
right.
And how the business mechanics of all of this happens.
Right.
As a fan and degree holder and graduate of Duke, I think Duke's going to be fine. Duke has made incredible progress on his football program in the last, I'd say, 6-7 years. And let's be honest, I may be wearing Carolina blue sweater tonight, but Duke is the master and the big dog when it comes to basketball.
You've got that sweater vest that's in the Duke blue, is what I'm hearing.
I do. And
okay.
So I go to all 3 games in the Triangle. I go to State, I go to Carolina, and I go to Duke. I was at the Duke Florida State game this past Saturday, and unfortunately, I'll be missing the Duke Carolina game this coming Saturday. But the people who were season ticket holders to Carolina, I never show up there and pull for Carolina. I always show up there and pull for Duke. So I'm the obnoxious person there, and I won't give our section, but that pulling for the Blue Devils.
I think that's fair. I cheer for both BYU and Washington State and Washington. So there's nothing wrong with having multiple hats. You just, when you're head to head, you have to make a decision. You got to be one way or the other, and that's about it. So
on Duke Carolina. So
okay. Yeah. I'm going to bring up your tweet. I did post the link to it, so everybody has access. I'm going to minimize this just for a second there, David. And you pointed out, and this is all in depth, so I encourage everybody to go to the link I just posted. Here, I'll post it one more time. And David breaks down this entire thing and why things should have gone maybe, and this is where they kind of end. Is there one takeaway you want people to take from what you've been posting on social media, and because what I'm afraid of is the storyline gets changed over time, right? And I'm afraid that stories like yours can be mitigated. People can come in and undercut it and not give it the weight and gravitas it actually needs. This ACC thing, it caught everybody off guard. I mean, you know me, I've been in doing this almost 3 years. When I woke up yesterday, I was stunned that they'd even come to a settlement. And then later in the day, hear the buyout amounts so marginal and small. I just, what is going on there?
Well, the one thing I'd want people to take away from that post from today, at least, is the notion of sovereign immunity. But I'll let sovereign immunity and people read that post. The other thing that I would take away, and the reason why, I mean, I think some people, again, are characterizing this as a victory of some kind for everybody. And the reason why I would suggest it's not is that Florida State, if they were successful at one thing, and Clemson never got around to doing this, it was what Florida State was successful at was amalgamating the value of the media rights as well as the raw exit fee as one.
Right.
And they were always separate. And so and I imagine at mediation, they continue to hold that position, and I don't blame them, because the higher the amount of money you're talking about, if you're talking about the original exit fee, the raw exit fee, which I've said from day one was an issue, because it cannot operate as a penalty. We call it liquidated damages.
Yeah.
Cannot operate as a penalty. And that was an issue. And the exit fee itself was valued at about, I think it is 3 times annual revenue or profit or something like that from the ACC, times 3 for 3 years. That's typically a pretty good measure of liquidated damages. And that came to, various figures of 120 million to 150 million. But the media rights, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And that is basically going to be as what were you paying out to Florida State over, I think the latest reports are about $50 million, which would be, during the balance of the grant of rights agreement.
Right.
So you're talking about $550 million, which, and that's how Florida State got to this number of $700 million, which is in Florida State's own pleadings. It's not in my tweets or anything like that. It probably is in my tweets, but it's in Florida State's pleading. That's how they got to the $700 million.
Okay.
So they were very good at sort of confusing, I think, the general public about what was what. And I will tell you that I'm unaware of any court, of any federal district in this country that has ever seen a copyright license as an exit fee or as liquidated damages. And instead, it's just a deal's a deal. So what Florida State got out of this is not only a reduced exit fee, which I think probably did need to be reduced, and they also got their media rights out as well.
Yep.
So Florida State is getting, a really good deal, and Clemson is too. And going forward, Carolina is, as well as Miami.
Yep.
And so going forward, they have clarity. They got exactly what they want. And so, but they're two separate things. And usually intellectual property license do, in fact, go on for many, many years. Patents can last for 20 years. You're going to sign it during the term of the patent and that kind of thing. And so it's hard to really, at least legally, understand how this is a win at all for the ACC, and more specifically, some of what's considered the mid-tier schools, or media deadweights, as some people are referring to it as.
Right.
So, which is kind of a, that's not very accurate, because what makes somebody's success, even as a big brand, is its ability to play lesser brands. So
Sure.
It's not like you can have every Sunday the Dallas Cowboys versus the Los Angeles Rams. They got to occasionally play my lonely, pathetic Carolina Panthers. And so it's, and in the same way, Florida State had to play Boston College. You're not going to have a Florida State Notre Dame matchup every year. So
right.
it's, and I will add that I think, and this is getting a little bit outside of my domain because it's not law, but it's pretty obvious to me that one of the things that makes the NFL so successful is its egalitarian model.
Yes.
When it comes to media rights distribution.
Yeah.
And in terms of parking, concessions, merchandise, whatever, the Dallas Cowboys is on its own, but they have at least something that where everybody can at least claim a certain portion of in an equal way. And that's how you have the parity you have in the NFL. So this new model is certainly different from that. And we'll see how, if it's adopted going forward, but there's no reason the NFL and this franchisee should not be insisting on the same thing. Jerry Jones should be insisting on this here in Texas for the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody knows it's the biggest brand. It probably drives the biggest viewership. So we'll see, but that's not been historically the way leagues have succeeded.
Okay, I know you got to go. I have one more question, if you'll bear with me. Okay. The one thing I haven't talked about at all in my posts on X Twitter in the last 36 hours has anything about Carolina politics. I haven't mentioned one thing about any of that because I wanted to get through the actual agreement, and then now everybody knows what the baseline is for the buyout and everything else. The big unknown, and you're the only guy in the room, certainly that I have personal contact with, that has anything to do with Carolina politics.
Yeah.
While you mentioned UNC might be the most valuable brand, they are tied to North Carolina, at least in some ways.
You mean North Carolina State? Yeah.
Or sorry, North Carolina State. So how, and maybe you can't answer this tonight, but the politics of Carolina, how does this affect sort of next steps?
You know, again, thankfully, I'm not a politician, and thankfully, I'm in intellectual property law. But, you know, I do live in the Triangle and have been there for a very long time, and would say I think hell will freeze over before the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill leaves without North Carolina State University.
Okay.
I also think that there is a very legitimate question, and it's not because, you know, of my allegiance to Duke or whatever, but there are very legitimate political questions in North Carolina. Is that, do you want to hurt, for example, Duke University is North Carolina's largest private employer, or second maybe, but it's up there. It employs a ton of people and has a massive economic impact on the state of North Carolina. Wake Forest does too. So there is some question about whether there is, you know, the politics in North Carolina, which again, I'm not involved in, it would make it impossible for Carolina to leave, definitely without NC State. But I think then there's an outside question about some of its other Tobacco Road brethren. And, you know, I personally think it would be ridiculous. I already cannot stand, this is from a fan standpoint, the fact that Duke and NC State, whose two stadiums are probably literally 20 to 25 minutes away from each other, if you're like you clear of traffic, do not routinely play each other. Yeah. And it's just sort of, I understand that, you know, it's where everything is going, but it certainly, I wonder if that is actually in the leagues and ESPN's and some of the other media partners in their best interest to do that kind of thing. So yeah, so you also have another guest on tonight that I think is from North Carolina. Maybe they can speak better to this. But I think hell's going to freeze over before that happens. I think if you look at the composition of the University of North Carolina Board of Governors.
Right. I've heard it's North Carolina State heavy.
Well, they're North Carolina heavy, like the whole state. They want what's best for the whole system. Now, I have said that I think the way that board is appointed and the fact that it has as much power as it does, as opposed to the more local constituent institutions of the University of North Carolina, that, you know, it's bonkers. I think the way we do higher education in North Carolina, but it's the way it is. And I think that they are concerned for the health of NC State. And it's a big deal. So I hear all these comments, and I've gotten a lot of emails, random emails, about, well, look what happened to Cal
Right.
and UCLA. I'm just here to tell you, not as a politician, but from just a casual observer in Raleigh, that I just do not see that happening. The same thing happening. I think hell will freeze over before NC State is left in the dark on this.
Oh, it's so interesting. The whole thing is fascinating. And I appreciate you coming on, giving us some time tonight, especially you and I booked this, 3 weeks ago? To have you come on tonight with the timing is incredible. So I'm just going to say again.
I try to be a person of my word. And so
You've always done that.
Come on for months and a long time. And so the timing did work out. And I'm glad to be here. Hope I was helpful and at least brought some insight to some things.
Absolutely did. And I want to thank you for coming, and hopefully we can get you back. I would love to have you come back, and maybe in a few weeks we can talk about what's going on next. So thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. You have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
All right.
We'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right. Let me turn on my mic here for Coach Steve. I'm going to clap him out. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing all right. So first, I do want to speak to Mr. McKenzie's credibility here. If you live in the triangle,
wow, you're going head to head.
You know who he is. He is a commodity.
Okay, but
he's legit. He's the real deal. He made a comment in one of his tweets earlier about being called an ambulance chaser, and that actually kind of made me laugh because just absolutely ridiculous. And frankly, that's a little rude because that's probably coming from someone that doesn't have a law degree. It's interesting what some people will say.
So let's reset. We kind of came in the middle of a thought for you there. You're talking about David McKenzie's credibility. You think it's very good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
okay.
He knows what he's talking about. He's the real deal. Like, if for whatever reason I needed the services of an IP lawyer, I'd probably hire him. I don't know if I couldn't afford him, but I would hire him.
We've been very lucky around here, and when I say we've, it's mostly been me, getting contacts with the people that do know this stuff. And certainly David has been wonderful to talk to as we've moved into ACC stuff in the last, 18 months. So I could not agree with you more. And I just want to clap him out. No, I don't have the soundboard working, Moen. He's going to yell at me because he sent me a soundboard, and I just haven't had time to install it. But I thank you so much for being here again, David, and we'll do this again. I hope that was educational for those people that are watching right now. If you just missed it, at the end of the show, flip back and watch the beginning 20 minutes, I guess half hour. David McKenzie representing what I think has been the will of the ACC and fans of the ACC. And to his words, he was stunned or shocked that this happened. This was announced yesterday. So give us your first impressions of not only the announcement yesterday, but what went on when the buyout amount was finally announced.
So David mentioned I want to speak to the politics part real quick. That is interesting. I tend to agree. Now, granted, I speak for only myself and nobody else. I'm just from here. All right, that's it.
Okay.
This is my personal opinion, but the way higher education is governed here is very weird. And if the state of North Carolina is not careful, it might put its wrong foot forward. It might get in its own way here.
Okay.
It could be tough. But he is right that I think at the end of the day, the interest of the schools in the state will win out. That's usually the way that goes. The only wild card is who knows what these executives will decide, because apparently they have a lot of power.
Okay.
They're a little scary. But I think at the end of the day, the ACC is going to be okay, at least for now. We'll see for how long. Personally, I don't want to see the ACC die. I don't think anybody really does. Or at least I don't think anybody really should. I don't think anybody should really be wanting any conference to die. I don't
think die is the right word.
Or contract, or even nobody wants to get left behind. And we're losing a lot of history.
Yeah, let's put that in frame, though. There are advantages and disadvantages for full sustainment and also for being parsed apart, right? Because for my part, I'm going to bring on Rec Talk, who's decided to join us early as well. Rec, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, I guess, considering. How are you?
This is crazy. I've got all the ACC guys in. I'm getting the high of highs and the low of lows. And this is going to be a great conversation. So just to circle back on that, Steve, is from a Big 12 perspective, I have a hat I have to wear, right?
Right.
And my hat is, what is going to be the greatest thing to sustain the conference that my school's part of? And right. I have to be considering sniping the best brands. That's not a value, though. Okay, I want people to be very clear about that. It's not that anybody's attacking the ACC for the ACC's sake. What they're doing is trying to get what they see as a carcass, and then take the best bits and put them in their back pocket, and that strengthens you in turn. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I don't think anybody's coming after the ACC necessarily like that. It's everybody's aware of what's going on.
Right.
Everybody's doing everything they can to stay alive. I think it's very clear that it's every man for himself.
That is a fact, Jack. There's no doubt about that. Rex down there moving back and forth in his chair. What do you think about that statement, Rex?
Well, like is below me. Like, am I the only college football fan? So, like, you're a North Carolina fan. You make it to the SEC. Are you better off there? I'm talking about winning football games, which is something no one seems to give a shit about anymore. They're talking about winning. That's how bad Florida State is. Like, someone's in the chat saying, oh, well, who's your sorry-ass team? Did you go 2-10? I think you did. Y'all are acting like this gives you a handicap of an automatic 3 more wins a year on your record. Like, how do you know that this – and you're a Big 12 guy,
I am.
Right? How do you know your conference isn't going to end up getting sniped?
I don't.
This grant of rights, like, I mean, and let's be clear as to what happened. They're still having to buy their way out of the grant of rights. It's just that the ACC now has to give a number, which they refused to do earlier. So when does the media deal for the Big 12 end? Or when is it?
2030-31.
Yeah.
The same time the ACC's does.
No, the ACC's well, there's 2 parts to that. The overall is 2036. The new agreement says in 2030-31, it's essentially a look-in, if you want to call it that. And then at that point, things can sort of be looked at again. That's currently what the agreement is.
Right. So that's when the buyout seems to that seems to be when we can all agree that the ACC probably implodes as we know it. Or
I don't think you can. I don't think that's going to stop. Yes.
Right.
And I think that's been accepted for some reason. I'm surprised at the number. If it's and I don't. Part of me doesn't fully believe it. The number we've been told, it feels low.
Well, we all said that last night. We freaked out about the buyout.
Why the heck would Georgia Tech agree to this? Why the heck would Syracuse agree to this?
Because they don't have a choice.
Yeah, I think they were strong-armed as well.
I mean,
they might be left with nothing, and
that's
the bigger question is why would the ACC agree to this? And there's some interesting points that the guy, I'm not super familiar with because I'm ignorant, and I admit that I'm ignorant. But he brought up of like sovereign immunity.
David McKenzie, he's an analyst, or sorry, he's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer, right? So. Sovereign immunity, which was used to screw Mike Leach, which I've talked about before. Right. And then here's what I can definitively say. There were things that were in discovery that the ACC did not want to be public knowledge.
Or ESPN didn't want.
Probably.
I think that's the real answer.
Right. And so they looked at like, we might come out of this with nothing.
Yes.
So let's do this. And, I see the super chat. This is Kerry Go Knowles is the guy, I kind of took a shot at. But yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah. So Florida State goes 2-10 one year and a B without a stinger harps on that 1 year, 13-0.
Yeah. The B that nearly knocked off one of the best teams in the country.
Well, wait a second. Let's talk about it in general. Let's talk about brands and not records. Really, because that's the bottom line.
Well,
It's going to be what's your brand value. It is it is to the media partners.
Sure. So have a branding national title trophy, I guess.
Sure. Why not? It doesn't bother me.
Y'all can be the go to Wichita, Kansas, say, see, I found a Florida State jersey here. Look at our brand. Like that's why I say I'm a college football fan.
I get it.
So
I get excited about the wagon wheel.
Sure.
Right.
I understand. Let me stop right there. Let's do a quick reset. David McKenzie joined us at the beginning of the show. Really appreciate him popping in. Kerry Knowles, obviously, we just went through your super chat, $5 super chat. Kerry's a longstanding member of the Mafia family. I'm just going to read it, and then I'm going to move to the other notes of business I need to do. Florida State goes 2-10 1 year and be without a Stinger Harps on that 1 year before. Let me get to the very first super chat we got right at the beginning of the show. Stormy Cyclone, brother, you have been so patient. I really, really appreciate you. Appreciate your membership of the Mafia family, and your super chat was appreciate your effort the last 24 hours. My last 36 hours has been pretty crazy. Let me get to a couple other things. Rock and Rant, contributor extraordinaire, somebody who was on with Rec Talk last night after our show, actually. He's been a member for 13 months. He's been helping us forever. Man, they let any old lawyer that has argued cases before the Supreme Court on this channel. Rock and Rant has a bit of an axe to grind. I'm not going to get into that right now, but it is true. We do have opinions, and most of the time they're normally defining and different. Bill G. Thank you, Bill G. 5 gifted memberships. I'm sorry, I don't have the client up. I don't know who they went to, but if you received a membership from Bill G, if you received a membership from Earl Carr, they both just gave between 15 new memberships to the College Football Mafia Network, and I could not be it just comes down to me being proud. I'm going to let this explode a little bit because we started this on a wing and a prayer 2 years ago, and here we are. And I've got people that are willing to do those memberships and give them to other people. I would encourage you, one, thank the person who gave you thank the person who gave you the membership. 2, after this show is over, jump to our membership area and go to the subscriptions tab, and you'll see in there a bunch of member-only videos. Best in the business. Nobody does them better, and there's a bunch of ACC stuff in there over the last 18 months. And last but not least, make sure you're following us. Rec Talk, follow him on Twitter. Coach Steve, follow him on Twitter. And, let's keep this thing going. It's a community.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick. Almighty Finn says, Rec Talk, how come you wasn't this vocal when we got snubbed? I was. I made several videos about it. In fact, there were few people that weren't Florida State fans that was as vocal as at defending you as your boy Rec Talk. Look, if you want someone, I am who I am when you bring me on here, right? Say hello to the bad guy, all right? If you want sunshine and roses pumped up your ass, go watch College Football Addiction. That ain't me, baby. I'm here to do what I do.
Okay. I appreciate you getting that out there. Anyways, thank you very much for being here, everybody. Let's get this show started talking about topics of the day. I'll do a quick reset so everybody knows kind of where we're at. So yesterday it was announced the ACC had a settlement. We don't know if it was a settlement. We don't know if they just walked away from the lawsuit. But both Florida State and Clemson in some way had resolution with the ACC. We heard that yesterday morning. Later in the afternoon, we had an On3 report that said it was $200 million buyout right now, today. And we weren't sure about the other numbers. We weren't even a double confirmation on the On3 report. And then this morning, I saw on Peek Around the Corner, Flug Empire, he was live streaming. Whose Board of Regents was that? Was it Florida State's? And they announced what that buyout amount is, and $75 million in 5 years, $200 million today, and those numbers stunned everyone. They were kind of in our mid-range for the Big 12 Mafia team. Sorry, College Football Mafia team. Well, me and Immaculate were anywhere from 80 to 120 million. Ute was around 180 to 2. Moen is in that same area. And now here we are today. And the ACC, is it at a tipping point? How many years does it have left? And what are we looking at as we contrast a UNC guy, sidelines UNC, Coach Steve, and Rec Talk representing Georgia Tech, who could not be more polar opposites in this argument, because Rec Talk has recency bias in their hands. They had a fantastic year last year, major viewership numbers, historically.
The most
King of Haynes and Associates.
Versus
Jamal
last
Haynes,
year,
Haynes King,
which would have been Florida State.
Like, no, those guys were so much fun to watch.
So that's our compare.
I hate them, but it was fun to watch.
So let's just start there, okay? I'm going to let you go first, Steve, since you waited all the way through that interview. North Carolina fan, ACC fan, but now what do you do with your hat? Do you turn it sideways? Are you now all in with the ACC, or are you bound and determined to push for an exit?
At the end of the day, I just want whatever's best for UNC. I would love for Tobacco Road to stick together. I would love for the ACC to stick together. I don't think the ACC is going to be able to stick together in its current iteration. I think 2030 is it. I do think it is smart because it does push off. I don't think anybody's going to do this right away. I think Mr. McKenzie brought up a few good points that will more than likely delay this. I think until this can be the back end issues can be dealt with. Every school in the ACC is now on the clock.
As an independent entity.
Yes.
Okay.
Your school is now on the clock, all 17 schools. Well, technically 18, but Notre Dame's fine. Whatever. Yeah. They don't really count, but whatever. Anyway, you need to be dumping every penny you have into college football. You need to be putting every penny you have into football. And you need to be putting it into football first, and then you need to be putting anything you have left into basketball, and then spread it out as best as you can. You need to either do that, or if you're big enough, like a lot of these private schools are in a lot of great positions. I think Duke is in a fantastic position. I think SMU is in a fantastic position. These schools have endless pools of money, and SMU has shown that's all you need. Like if you're a fan, you should be wanting your school to invest in athletics across the board right now. New facilities, better ticket packages, better engagement with fans, better brand growth. Like you want to be doing everything you can. And I don't want to see anybody left behind. I would hate not playing Georgia Tech, personally. I hate not playing in the Coastal. I love the Coastal. There's a lot of great rivalries there. I don't know. It's hard to really feel good about this, even though Mr. McKenzie said a lot of really great stuff about Carolina. I mean, there's some stuff that I'm thinking, hey, you got to feel pretty good about that. And he's not wrong, but it doesn't feel good. I mean, I don't like it. I hate it because, like, at the end of the day, there's a pretty good chance that Georgia Tech's going to not even get invited. Like, what the heck is this? Why are we doing this? Like, they're going to be
invited to what? To
whatever this stupid super whatever crap they want to do. That sure, go ahead, go have that brand beauty contest, whatever you want to do. It's fine if we get invited. Cool, because that's good for my school financially and growth and brand, and that's great. But it's not good for everybody.
No, it's not good for the fan. The fan's the one that's getting the giant middle finger in all of this. Like, I don't know. I would assume most people watching the show are college football fans, and you don't watch much NFL football. No. I would assume.
Not at all.
What are the reasons that you watch college football? The rivalries. Shit. Now even conference title games are going away, right? So maybe to extend an olive branch to the Florida State fan, maybe if I'm being fair, you're catching some strays, because I'm just frustrated that the landscape of college football is becoming something that is why I don't watch the NFL. right? Also, you have a losing record against us last decade. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. Hey, look.
Not you, Florida. I mean, you do too, but
I know
Florida State does as well. So, and look, I get why Florida State and Clemson, these teams are mad. Make no mistake, the ACC, I'm not here to defend the ACC. The ACC screwed this up 20,000 different ways.
Yes.
They did
different
everything.
times.
I mean, like if you were to put a, well, here's just some life advice. Doing nothing is making a decision.
Sure
Doing nothing forces other people to make decisions, right? Which is kind of what happened here. And it's really more to the previous commissioner than this one. But and that's
they weren't alone though. Let's be clear, Rec. The Pac-12 did the exact same thing. Had made the exact same mistakes, which is ironic because the ACC had another 18 months to correct that Pac-12 mistake. Instead, they doubled down on what was a broken format before. They should have done this settlement thing 2 years ago to give an incentive for people to keep the ACC together. Now it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late. Nothing you can do. And they weren't alone either. I give Clemson a pass, but just as a fan watching it, like Clemson has a self-imposed sanction that their head coach put on them by refusing to use the portal. So again, it's not clear to me. Okay, is money in the problem with these teams, or are there other things that they could probably do to be more competitive? He's kind of reversed his track on that, but he's still the way he does NIL. He refuses to pay a high school athlete the way that other teams do. So yeah, you go get all this money. Again, is this really what's helping you? So I don't know, man. Like, I mean, you could see like Georgia Tech go away. You know, you could see Florida State, Miami not play in the foreseeable future. And that's where I'm coming from. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a media expert. I'm just a fan. And that's why I'm salty about this.
I think it's totally fair. Bo Weevil, thanks for being here, Bo Weevil. I appreciate you joining the show. $5 super chat. Why is fan support for football so poor at UNC? X half full stadiums. I can understand Wake Forest, but UNC I watch and see so few fans.
Well,
that is as an outside observer.
Yeah, that's a
I've
good
never
question.
understood why North Carolina's support for football isn't better.
There's been multiple points throughout our history where our administration has chosen basketball ahead of football. Now, granted, when you have names like James Worthy, Michael Jordan,
brands
like Dean Smith,
right,
Roy Williams, like when you have these names come through your university and leave the marks that those people did. Now Coach Banger with the women's team, my goodness, a wagon. She's turned that program completely around. It makes sense. It makes sense why basketball for so long has been the forefront at UNC, and especially for the administration. But I think the university seems to have gotten the message that was sent by the SEC and the Big Ten, and that is if you're not already here and you can't compete in football, like the guys that are already here, sure, for now, you know, Rutgers gets a pass, Indiana, you know, whatever schools in the big whatever conferences just don't traditionally invest in football, they get a pass because they're there. But for whatever reason, if you're not already in the conference, you have to be amazing at football. It drives things, and I don't think it's fair. I think an athletic department as a whole is a better measure of a university's brand and value, but it's where we are.
I would say the reverse, Rec, is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has grown their football exactly at the right time. They're peaking really well. Now what do you do to capitalize?
Yeah, and people have put this in the chat like, well, why are you salty? Like, Georgia Tech's probably going to be fine. And they are. And again, it's because, you know, I'm a college football fan as a whole. But yeah, Georgia Tech hired a guy named Jay Batt from Alabama that came in, and there's a ton of old guard guys at Georgia Tech that I still argue with. people that say we should run the triple option and all this silly nonsense. Like, I can't tell you how many.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun to watch.
It's fun to watch, and then you watch Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson go to Clemson. You never had a shot at even talking to them. But, yeah, I mean, you beat Georgia a few times in that. But Jay Batt basically gave those guys a middle finger and said, hey, we're selling naming rights to our stadium, which a bunch of people were mad about. He raised $200 million like that for Georgia Tech. And, I don't usually use the word sleeping giant, but I look at like people talking about North Carolina, and I'm not here to crap on you, but I don't really understand the massive appeal that North Carolina has. And all the arguments that people use for why they do have massive appeal applies to Georgia Tech, and they're the fourth highest viewed, like they're the first outside of Miami, Florida State, and Clemson. Outside of that, and you don't hear people talking about Georgia Tech in those conversations as much. And look, there's a ton of things I'm not privy to. I'm not a politician. This isn't Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, but that's just kind of what I'm looking at. I don't even know what you originally asked me, and I don't even think I answered it. But
that's okay. You know what? I think everybody gets the idea that you're a little bit emotional about what's going on right now.
Like
rightfully so.
I'm the weird Al Yankovic of YouTube. So.
All right, we're going to do this. Sorry, I got something in my teeth. We're going to do this. I didn't welcome everybody to the show, right? We started with like 80 people watching. I'm sorry I didn't do that, but I only had David McKenzie so much time. So I had to go to him. And then we brought on guests, guys that are, I would say, subject matter experts for their own spheres of influence. And we want to answer your questions. So we're going to do a quick reset right now. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter. Subscribe both on YouTube and Twitter for us. Turn on your notifications. That's a really big deal so that you know when all of us post, you can track kind of what the news is of the day and general trends in college sports. And then if you're on X, do me a favor. X, flip over to the YouTube page, College Football Mafia, and subscribe. That would really help us out. Does me a big favor, and I really appreciate it. Going forward, super chats are always read. If you want your comment to be guaranteed, make it a super chat. I defer to member comments, and then next I pick the most creative comments, the ones that are most relevant at the time. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to pick one right this second, and I just lost it. Here we go. Marty Simmons, who happens to be a valuable member of the Mafia family. Really, a lot of schools in the ACC didn't invest in their football programs.
Yeah. A lot of schools is a little too late. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. There's a window. And I'd actually argue that Carolina's right on the edge of is it too late or is it the right time? I do think it was now or never. And the money we've just dropped on the program, I think accurately reflects that approach. There's definitely a shot being taken, but we'll see if it works out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is true, but I think you also have to look at why this is and how tragic it is for some of those fans, right? They might not have the ability to do that. Like, oh, I'm going to go compete with Intel in the processor market. Why are you not spending? Why don't you have a budget of $4 billion? Like, why? I don't have the ability. Now, that's not doing any favors to anyone else in the conference. I think Georgia Tech's probably the best example of that, of a team that has had the ability to invest in football, hires a triple option coach, lets most of the conference pass them by for no reason. And then all of a sudden now you're seeing what happens when Tech invests in their program. But yeah, like I said, I think Tech's probably the best example of a team that just refused to invest in football for some time, and probably another reason why I'm so angry in my old age.
I think it's worth pointing out that my memory serves me correctly, Georgia Tech is technically a former SEC champion.
Well, that's the funny thing when I argue with SEC fans, like
that's got to be a great trump card, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Like, Vanderbilt, we beat you. Well, we haven't been in the SEC since before we landed on the moon, and we have more SEC titles than you. So, good job on your bowl victory.
All right.
Yeah.
Next comment, or what is this? A question? It's a comment. I'm going to let you guys answer, and then I'm going to give my answer on it, and that is not that one. This one.
Fine.
Why don't the ACC and the Big 12 just merge?
Mm.
I mean, how many teams would that be?
That's what, like 30?
You guys give your answers. Mine's patent already.
That's ridiculous. For the same reason that Big East thing the other day is ridiculous.
That was a joke.
What
that
was that?
Had
40?
to be that was a trial balloon.
Somebody, that was.
There was no
awful.
way that was happening.
You can't sustain that many teams. At that point, it doesn't make sense for anyone unless you have a built-in 2-tiered system, which defeats the purpose anyway.
You would just
or you have separate football and basketball entities or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you would end up with 2 divisions that would be the ACC and Big 12.
That's right.
You defeat the whole purpose of doing it. I think the better question there is, will this just become a two-league super team? Like that would happen before this merge would happen.
Yeah, that's probably where we're headed.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No. Go ahead. I just think that's where we're going.
My opinion is the Big 12 is going to strike first. I don't think it's an accident that the Redbird Capital announcement came last week for the Big 12. I think they're flashing cash, as it were. They're walking around the room with a bunch of dollar bills. Brett Yormark in Louisville's ear. Brett Yormark through all intermediaries, because right now they can do first-party talks, like peek around the corner. Greg Flugar explained to everyone. First-party talks can now happen because we know what that buyout amount is, and you're not breaking any codes of silence by going out and shopping yourself. So, in my opinion, while the ACC could do a reverse and eat the Big 12, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Big 12 is going to eat first, and the reason they don't merge is because, and you guys have talked about it, there's some brands there that just don't carry much media value. That's not me knocking on anyone. That's literally facts. Okay. That's facts, people. So the Big 12 is not going to bring another school on that doesn't carry at least whatever our minimum is. And I'm not going to name the schools who I think those are.
Can I just make a slight point on that?
Sure. Go ahead.
Because, I watched your show, and what is it? Wild Ute.
Yeah.
Who I do like. And I'm not at all talking bad about him, but he made a statement, and this is a statement a lot of people are making, like milk suckers and milk drinkers, which seems
milkers,
or however it was, which seems it didn't feel right. I mean, I get exactly what he's saying, but here's the thing. Here's the other side of like, Wake Forest isn't pulling their weight, and Pitt ain't pulling their weight. The other side of that is you need those teams to beat the hell out of on your schedule, right? In other words, you go to another league and you don't have teams like that you can just kind of get an easy W on.
Which is basically the Big 12. What you're describing for parity is pretty much what the Big 12 is.
What do you mean like that? And there's no easy teams to beat in the Big 12?
Right. And at the same time, there's no one elite school.
Oh, it's just a much more even league.
Yeah, it's like the NFL. It's just, it's all one. I think it's generally agreed. Josh Pate said it 100 times, that Mark Rogers has said it. Big 12 is fantastic. It's fun to watch. They eat themselves alive because they're all basically the same.
This is true. Yeah. I mean, Arizona State came out of nowhere, and I have a ton of respect for Arizona State because Lawrence Krause was a teacher there.
Well, and those outliers are going to happen. But generally, in the next 5 years, you might have 5 different champions of the Big 12.
Which is exciting, which is another, I wouldn't call it a problem with the ACC, but it's been the Clemson show. Yeah, like
absolutely.
Florida State's done it as well. But consistently, Clemson has just dominated the ACC. Which
certainly
is
Clemson and Florida State have.
Clemson and Florida State for the last 50 years have run this conference.
Yeah.
Sure.
And look, we're only talking about maybes here, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing set. Until a school buys out, there's nobody that's bought out. The ACC is still contiguous, as it were. I just think it has a fatal flaw. And that fatal flaw is the entire world knows Florida State and Clemson won out. which just by that statement.
It's not just Clemson and Florida State.
Well, I'm not saying it's only them, but I'm saying they were the ones that started the whole thing, right?
They're the ones willing to waste a bunch.
Exactly. They won. Well, they won a lawsuit essentially. They got everything that they wanted.
I don't think they got everything they wanted though either.
I mean, think they got pretty much everything.
Everything they wanted would be no buyout. You can leave tomorrow.
Yeah, everything they wanted would be, hey, we're gone. This creative rights is dead.
Yeah, that was never going to happen, though. We're talking about things that possibly could happen.
I would say they got 85% of what they wanted, for sure.
That's fair.
No, I mean, it's a huge victory for them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
for the sinister, well, I guess it's the sinister six now that I guess NC State is technically defected.
Sure.
Yeah, and in a minute, we'll break those schools down. I'm glad you said that, Steve, because that was a question that I forgot. I was going to ask David, and he's now gone. But first, let's get to this super chat from Kerry Go Knowles, who is a super OG around here at the College Football Mafia Network. Good to see you again, Kerry. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your super chats and your loyalty. I really, really appreciate it. Relax, bro. Georgia Tech has won more natties than 90% of all SEC teams. Lol.
You know what? Florida State's fine. Keep talking that way for me for the next 2 hours, and we'll be friends fast.
You want to say anything to that, Steve, before I move on?
Oh, no. I'm not getting between that.
All right, Brad. That's probably, you don't want to catch strays. That's probably a good idea. And then Moanopoly, everybody knows Moan the man, a partner of mine around here, and I really appreciate him watching. Gives another 5 memberships. We're well over 150 people watching live. 5 more gifted memberships. I appreciate who got those. And you know what, Moan, I'm sorry, but I am just not tracking. I need a moderator. Can somebody do me a favor and shout out those people who got those memberships in the comment section? I appreciate you. And if you're a new member, thank you so much for being here, and consider paying that forward, giving somebody else a membership. It's how we keep things going, and it's good karma.
I got you.
I
that
think
would
karma's
be
real.
Matt Higgins, Chef Meal 7, Numbskull News.
Numb's back.
That's a great news. Alliterative name, Jimmy Wash. And Zoe Zucci.
You did that so well. You got that radio voice, Freck. I gotta have you do that every day.
Let me tell you, you crazy cats and kittens, I'm up here.
Tune in now to WFAN.
Yeah, too bad radio's as dead as the ACC is.
Right, and that's why we're here. So thanks so much, Moen. I appreciate the 5 gifted memberships. And again, you get a membership. After the show's over, go watch those member videos. They go back ages, and they cover everything in the ACC. All right. So let me get to my next question or comment. What did I have? This was the next one. So we're talking continuity of the ACC. All 3 of us are sort of assuming 2030, 31. By then, something will move. We have the look-in the college football mafia, college football playoff. Look-in is 27-28. What do you guys think about the ACC? Does it last to 2030?
Yeah.
Well, I say last. Sorry, let me qualify that. Last as it's currently constructed. Sorry.
Potentially on paper. Never underestimate North Carolina politics, ever. And again, for those that weren't here earlier, I want to point back to what Mr. McKenzie said. It will play a role in some fashion. He also brought a lot of good points. Wake Forest and Duke both employ a very large number of people in North Carolina. That is something to consider.
Yeah, I didn't know that, by the way. That was for me.
Duke Hospitals is massive. Okay. Absolutely massive. They're also one of the leading hospitals. UNC Hospitals is one of the largest hospital systems in the state of North Carolina. They're both they employ thousands upon thousands of people. It's pretty high numbers. So
you think 2030?
I think potentially on paper. I think there will be, people will have at least announced they're going to be out before then, well before then. I think we'll know around that 27, 28. Okay. Because 2030 does seem to be another inflection point for the larger picture.
It's
the way
only a couple
the
years
contracts
away,
and everything's line up.
Yeah.
But 28, I think, is when we'll hear who is going where.
Correct.
I mean, that's tough to say. I mean, that's purely.
Oh, that's purely my guess. Yeah.
I guess
Of
you're
course,
asking me.
we're all
Like,
guessing, right?
yeah, like if I had to bet, would Florida
That's a good way to
State,
put it.
Clemson, Miami, North Carolina leave before 2030? I don't know, because I don't know how motivated the SEC and Big Ten are to snipe one of them before 2030. And there's a variety of opinions on this. I'm kind of the opinion they're in such a strong position. Like, they don't need any of these schools. So why would they, go out of their way to get one of them? But then the counter argument to that is, well, they're going to at some point engage in an arms race for these schools. So maybe one of them wants to fire the first shot in that. If I had to bet, I'd say one of them leaves before 2030. I think, because that would give them, if you're in 2027, 2028, that's 2 to 3 years to get your ducks in a row.
Right.
I think one of them probably fires a shot and gets out before 2030.
I think we see a private leave first. I don't think we'll see a public university.
It is fascinating how there are literally millions of choices related to this status of the ACC and the timing for declarations. I could not agree with you more. In fact, I've been saying it from the very beginning when the first media deal for the college football playoff was initially announced, and everybody was in realignment mode because of the Pac-12 and whatnot. I told everybody I do not see a reason why, WHY, there's some urgency for the Big Ten or the SEC to expand at all.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. The only circumstance I think that happens is if UNC is able to make a break politically, Notre Dame is talked into or finally decides to join a conference, right? And who they may take with them. Hello, Stanford or Duke. So I think the likelihood is that 2030 is really when people leave. When they announce it, though, I think they might announce it tomorrow and say we're intending to do this in 5 years. I mean, the announcement itself, I think
that would surprise me if I'm being honest.
The normal is 27 months. That's what the declaration has been in the past. I
would be a little surprised if we hear anything like in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I don't think there's a big rush.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's anything imminent. This is the green light. There is still a lot of work left to be done.
Yeah.
This is hey, all right, all engines start. You may now proceed to go collect 200. Ironically. It's going to be a while. Don't expect anything for a hot minute.
You know what makes my day is here I am in the middle of a long explanation to Rec, and he gets up and walks away, and he's not even there.
I needed nicotine. You can see I'm a nervous wreck here.
I have just teased.
Yeah, no, and he's got a right to be like.
I thought the timing was awesome. Is all I'm saying. Greg Flugart's watching the show. Peek around the corner. The OG of social media reporting for all college football matters, as far as I'm concerned, and mentor of mine. Good friend as well. Georgia Tech, $10 for super chat. Sorry. Georgia Tech is a Big Ten school academically. Research is in a massive market, meaning Atlanta. They just need dominoes to fall their way in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's true. Look, I was a student at Georgia Tech, and I know there's going to be a lot of people saying I'm an idiot, but I was published in IEEE. So there. But no, I think that's also true of North Carolina as well. North Carolina and Georgia Tech, to me, are textbook Big Ten schools, and they're both markets that the Big Ten is not currently in. Now, like my own fan base, because we used to be in the SEC, is like, well, because I've said I think there's a 0% chance Georgia Tech goes to the SEC. There might be less than a 0% chance Tech goes to the SEC because they already have a presence in the state. And if I was a betting man, I'd say Georgia Tech ends up in the Big Ten.
It would make
that's homerism, but yeah.
Yeah, and for the record, for any Georgia fan that doesn't want to admit that, it would impact your brand. having Georgia Tech in the conference would make you weaker in state.
Oh yeah. Now, if we want to pivot and trash Georgia fans, I'm all for that.
Yeah, let's
Hey.
not do that today. Certainly, I wouldn't be a part of that. I enjoy
No.
Georgia, so I'm not doing that.
But no, it's an important point to consider. That's especially with realignment. There's a reason why people are a little bit worried about the politics here in North Carolina, because if it comes down to it, and all 4 Tobacco Road schools are paired at the hip, that's the big problem. You then have an attraction issue when it comes to these media markets, because then you're oversaturated, because then you're banking on the brand as a whole as opposed to the brand of the individual schools. And it cannibalizes the media markets. It's just
I think that's the reason why the SEC is I don't think the SEC picks up Florida State or Clemson for that exact reason.
And that's another point to consider. I think Louisville's a good point. They're in the
why duplicate the markets? I don't see it. You don't gain anything.
For the Big 12,
yeah.
No, not for the Big 12. I'm talking about for the SEC.
Well, so here's a case for Georgia Tech. There are 2 major Power 5 programs in the state of Georgia. That is Georgia and Georgia Tech. If you want to corner that market completely, there's the argument of completely dominate market share for an entire state's worth of fan base. And that is not a shot at any of the other schools in Georgia either. Those are just the 2 big names. That is the only argument I can think of, and it's not a bad one.
Here's the thing, though, and I hate to say this because it makes my own team look bad, but I can be objective. Georgia Tech doesn't even own the market share of their own city. So there's tons, like you walk around Atlanta, how many people have a Georgia shirt on, or Florida State, or an Auburn, or something like that. Now, they're doing a lot to recover that and repair that. But as of now, it's a work in progress, and that's the biggest impediment they probably have to the Big Ten. Like someone in the chat says, well, who cares about academics? Well, the Big Ten does.
The Big Ten absolutely does. Yeah. There's a reason that and what I think one of the things mentioned, I don't know who is ESPN's article, I think. I'm not sure, but the initial announcement on the settlement was somebody mentioned something about giving people time to achieve AAU status.
Yeah, Pete Thamel.
That is a key. Yes. That is key for the Big Ten. The SEC is more than likely to just want the biggest brands available that they can get their hands on. The Big Ten is going to be a bit pickier about who they let in. They're going to want schools like Bomber mentioned. Like if they took a Notre Dame, they'd probably be pretty keen on Stanford. That would make some sense.
Yeah.
They've already got the region there with USC, and the other Cali schools already there with Washington and Oregon. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Do you think they hold to that? I think that's a big question too, because is it Nebraska?
Notre Dame will never join a conference.
Well, no, I'm talking about was it AAC status for
the
AAU for the Big Ten.
If push comes to shove, probably not. Like if it's a question of either they get Florida State or like the SEC gets Florida State, no, it won't matter.
It makes a lot of sense for Florida State to work that be their number one goal now that they've got the settlement to get,
because the money they can make appear. That's not in question with Florida State.
Yeah, Nebraska lost AAU after joining.
They did. So. They did. Yeah. It's not a requirement. Tony Petitti came out last year or 2 years ago now, and he said, no, AAU is not required. But then there's a wink that says
it would be nice.
It's a private club, and we'd love to have you, right? So you need to get into that to sort of earn your way. That's another. And let's quickly run through the schools, and you guys help me where I miss them. Tell me what Wake Forest does for the next 3 years. Short answers so we can get through these. What does Wake Forest do for the next 3 years?
I would say they're in going in the right direction with Dickert. Strong hire. I have my thoughts as just with how he left Washington State, but it's a great hire for Wake Forest. I think he's a good coach. I think he's He knows what he's doing. He's going to be able to develop talent. That's something you're going to need to be able to do at Wake Forest because you're not always going to win these recruiting battles. You need to be able to evaluate talent. And you need to make it work. And for a long time, they had someone there that could do that with occasional success. Actually, some pretty darn good teams out of Wake Forest. That team with Sam Hartman was a lot of fun a couple years ago. That was a heck of a squad. But outside of that, they need to invest. I mean, the city of Winston itself isn't in a great spot. They've lost a lot of big corporations that used to be headquartered in Winston, no longer are. And it's I think personally, again, just my opinion.
So I'm hearing from you, Steve. There's not a lot Wake Forest can do. They're trying, but okay. Is that what? I'm sorry,
tough.
Steve. I'm not trying to.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm trying to shorten our answers.
The short answer is, does it matter? There's nothing they can do. They're going to get their knee pads out for the ACC. And
Load up Boston College, and you can just say same if you want.
Yeah, a lot of these schools, I think there's not much they can do, and a lot of them are probably better off just sitting tight and doing their best with what they can. Invest into football right now, maybe get a little pop, get lucky, or maybe just dump it all into basketball and get you a squad.
Well, these are schools that even if they right now heavily invested in football, I don't know that it would make much of a difference at this point.
I agree with
There's a couple that could get it done, but I don't think they all can.
Syracuse.
Ooh, that's a tough one because
they could do it.
They're fringe, right? I think
they've got a heck of a stadium. They've got a brand.
They do have
had some success.
I went last year to Syracuse. Look, I think Fran Brown is silly in some of the things he says, but you can't deny what he did for them. I don't know their financials, though. If I had to guess, it's not great. They did pony up some money to get cut.
They're a private.
They're private. Okay.
I believe they're a private, and if they're a private, they're in a great position because privates can make money magically appear, and they don't have to really tell you where it came from. So they can get creative.
I think they're on the outside looking in, though. They should be worried.
Yeah.
All right. SMU.
Fantastic position. Keep doing what you're doing and keep spending as much money as possible, as fast as possible. Set it on fire. You're on the clock if you want to make it to the dance. Good luck. I'm pulling for you.
Look, I'm a sidewalk kind of fan of SMU because of how they got screwed with the death penalty. But
I want nothing but nice things for SMU.
I don't know how to evaluate SMU because their media numbers are last. But did they calculate the time they were in another conference? I'm not sure how that.
I think it didn't matter. They averaged less than 100,000 fans in the AAC. And before them, the Sun Belt. Before them, what's its league? They just don't have viewers.
Yeah, and that's a big problem for them. So they go from the highest of highs. You come in the ACC, make a title game, make a playoff. I think this is not good at all for SMU. That's my opinion.
I love that you guys are opposite. I see both sides. I see the positivity from Coach. I also see the realistic.
Well, hold on now. I'm not saying they're in a good spot. I'm saying I'm pulling for them. And
well, you said
they've got an opportunity. They've got a window of opportunity.
So you're qualifying.
I don't know
because you did say originally. You did say SMU's in a great spot. Keep doing what you're doing. So
that's their ticket. That's the one thing they have an advantage in is they have a crap load of money.
Okay.
Sure.
Or so they say. But if they have that money, they need to spend it as fast as possible, which it seems like they're doing. They're upgrading facilities. They're starting to get bigger recruits than they were getting in other conferences. Now, there's an argument to be made they're not getting huge recruits. They lost out on I think it was Keelan Russell was his name to Alabama. Came in and picked up this 5-star quarterback that's going to be quite good. The money is their ticket.
Well, they need to spend their money on marketing. Every billboard from Virginia down to Miami going down 85 needs to be SMU.
They had billboards in Cal. They had billboards. They've had them in a couple of cities across the ACC.
Yeah, they can't compete in Dallas. Fort Worth is the problem. They're like 6th or 7th. They're behind Permian High.
The biggest thing they have going for them right now is that the Cowboys are not good.
There you go. Anyway, all right. SMU is just going to put that on a shelf. I personally, I think they're in trouble again. They bought their way in, and now it's conceivable they're going to be in a conference, still not making any money, and that conference devolves to a basketball league. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen.
Yeah.
So this is a good one. Stanford.
I don't know how to evaluate Stanford either. It seems like their only ticket is Notre Dame. They better hope Notre Dame
That's a good attachment.
Make some moves. If they don't, they're screwed, in my opinion.
I think Cal and Stanford are both in the same spot. I wouldn't be surprised if those two end up back in the Pac-12.
Yeah, money's a thing.
The money would be weird, but also I think adding them to that conference would up that number a bit more than some people might think.
Right.
Just
are they going to be in the same
dominance
league as Boise State?
I mean, what other option do they have?
They might go independent before they join a league with Boise State.
Stanford might.
They're as elitist, and I'm saying this as a Tech fan that has this problem, as any team you'll ever meet, and that also works to their detriment here.
Oh, absolutely. They would have gone to the Big 12. Their brand is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's not that, it's their ego.
Yep.
And honestly, well, there's another word I would use. I'm not going to use that right now. All right, so Cal, Stanford. I think Cal's in the same boat. I think
they're in the
as
same spot.
Stanford goes, Cal maybe gets a call up. A lot of people from the Big Ten today, lots of comments have said, boy, Cal is in a great spot, right? They might just go with Stanford and hello Big Ten and a Western wing with 6 teams in the Big Ten and all this. I think Cal is in real trouble. I've seen him. Well,
where's the investment?
They're the most indebted team in the country.
Yeah,
but the entire state of California is in debt, though. They debt spend every day.
Okay,
he's got a point. They are in debt in like one of the few places where it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, they don't care.
Tells you that they're not very well watched either, though.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, Cal's struggling. It's true. Louisville.
That's an interesting one. That's probably the most interesting one in the ACC. If I had to pick, they seem like a pick for the Big 12 because let's just assume Miami and Florida State don't go to the Big 12.
Right.
I would think in that scenario, Louisville probably gets a call with the 4 spots they have. I think Louisville is in a good spot. That's my opinion.
Coach?
I could see it go either way. I do think they are a commodity. I don't know. I think that they're hot in basketball at the right time. Their football looks pretty good. Yeah, I think they're in a decent spot.
Louisville right now is the 5th most viewed school in the conference.
All right.
And I think they are the number 1 phone call to the Big 12. The question with Louisville is, 1, how do you handle their buyout, right? How does that look? And what's the timing? And 2, is it enough to change conferences? Because changing conferences, you guys, is such a hassle. If you don't have to, why would you, right? So
it would have to be a good deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think Brett Yormark's out there with, again, a fistful of cash. And just to bring him over to sort of break the ice and open realignment up again, I could see Louisville being the Colorado of the Pac-12. And they got money from the Pac-12 to just join, like cash. They wrote him a check. I could easily see that happening with
Do they have it?
Louisville.
Like, I don't know Louisville's financial situation.
They're private. I mean, as long as
that, I do not know the answer to that. If somebody in chat knows the answer to that, I don't know how they are in their financials. I'll tell you this: I haven't heard bad about it.
Okay.
But again, I'm
right now, any private school, when it comes to realignment, any private school, just expect that they can come up with whatever amount of money if they really, really wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's right. 4 schools are going to lump together: North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, Pitt, and who am I missing? I was going to put Georgia Tech in there, but I'm going to leave Georgia Tech aside. Those 3 schools.
North Carolina State's in a good spot.
Would you put Duke in there?
I completely forgot about Duke. Yeah, Duke would be let's leave Duke aside too. Let's talk about just those three.
Okay, Virginia Tech, Virginia, and NC State.
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as Virginia and Virginia Tech, I mean, hell, Virginia Tech's been on the struggle bus since they left the Big East, haven't they? I mean, they haven't sniffed the success they had under like Michael Vick.
Right.
What's that been, 20, 25 years? Again, with a lot of these schools, I don't know what their funding situations are. There's a lot of media heads that will talk about, oh, well, the Virginia market, this, that, and the other. I don't know anything about that, but I just have to look at it as simply as possible and kind of Occam's razor this. What does Virginia and Virginia Tech really add if you're the Big Ten and SEC when you can get other schools that are way better? I don't think much. I think they're on the outside looking in of the Big 12. I would say all of them. NC State's kind of an outlier because they're hoping to ride
politics.
Anybody in Tobacco Road feels cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, they're hoping to ride the coattails of UNC somewhere.
Pretty much. UNC and Duke are the tickets out of the conference for Wake and State.
Okay.
And don't sleep on Duke. Duke is a huge brand.
I don't think anybody's sleeping on Duke.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those you sort of.
People point
totally
to the football
respect
team
Duke.
all
I
the
just
time and
forget
they make
about
jokes about the stadium and whatever. No,
Right.
It doesn't matter. Duke basketball is just that big.
Right. It is a brand, and I agree. That one maybe you put on your own. By the way, I'm going to leave this here so everybody knows. In the last 5 years, I believe this is minus the COVID year. This is the viewership and where everybody's been viewing. If you're below 0.1, that's, for instance, SMU average for 5 years is only 250,000, which is horrendous.
What do you mean,
What'd you say?
What do you mean 0.1? That's a quarter.
No, not viewership share, not a share. The 0.25 represents 250,000 people watching. 1 is 1 million.
Okay.
Oh, the way the chart works, yeah.
Yes, and the average, just so you know what the average is. Okay, Pitt. I'm going to qualify this by saying I think Pitt is the one school that could talk themselves out of a position, quite possibly with Big 12, a la what Utah almost did with the Big 12. Stick to your guns so much, your AAC or die. You could be left to wither and die like Oregon State and Washington State. Cautionary tale. What do you think Pitt does?
Go ahead.
Oh, I have no idea. Pitt's weird.
Even you guys think Pitt's odd?
Pitt is odd. I mean, they've got this rivalry with West Virginia.
They're in a huge city.
Yeah, which is pretty big. But now I guess we haven't really talked about this. Pitt is in a huge NFL.
That's the problem. Like the Steelers are one of the biggest brands in the sports.
Absolutely. Yep.
That probably works against them. I think their best hope is probably the Big 12, but they're on the outside looking in of that too. I think there's several schools. And
I don't think they're on the outside. I think the recent success of the backyard brawl will help them, at least perception-wise.
Yeah, I think
Pitt started hot last year and got absolutely no respect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it was the worst of everybody.
Yeah, I mean their quarterback got hurt, but still,
that dude Holstein is pretty darn good.
I'm not saying anything about good or bad. I'm just saying there is a perception that they are.
Well, that's the whole ACC though. The whole ACC has that perception problem.
Right, which is
unless you're Clemson or Florida State, and even then they get disrespect. I mean, my goodness, we saw what happened with the committee 2 years ago with Florida State.
There is a reason the ACC and the Pac-12 tried the alliance. They have the same strengths, and they absolutely have the same weaknesses. And you said it when you joined, Coach, even before Rec joined. There are 17 different opinions about how to do something. You guys are not contiguous together. You're undercutting each other. Your votes are 3/4 instead of 100%. That is the intrinsic weakness of the Pac-12 and now the ACC, and why
the interesting part
you could have issues with breaking up.
The most interesting part to me is that the Sinister Six, initially the Sinister Seven, were involved multiple founding members
of
the ACC. It's just strange to want out of a conference that you helped create.
The thing, though, is that's a problem with any group. This is why you have property in New York that has gone unrented for a decade because people that are investors.
It's an investment property. Yeah.
They're never going to agree with people in the lower tranche because they get hit first. The difference, I think, is in the SEC, like the Big Ten. The big boys of those conferences are all together. All right. There's only like 2, maybe 3 big boys in the ACC, so they can kind of get outnumbered by the other teams. So sure. I guess there is some more continuity in the other 2 conferences, though.
That and again, I point to this selfishly. The Big 12 is the exact same way. Everybody's on the same page because they know if they break up, there is nothing. If you have a school starting to snipe at each other, and it can't be settled, I think the conference is dead man walking.
Well, so I don't think it's necessarily the schools sniping at each other. I think it's a lack of faith in the league itself.
Maybe. That's possible.
I think that's more at the core of this than anything else. I mean, yes, a lot of people would have pointed to, Florida State listed this school. I don't care. Okay, that's the sake of making a legal argument. That does not mean what you think it means.
Right.
It's a legal argument. That's it. Take it for that and nothing else. All right, like it's a lack of faith in the league's direction, the league's leadership. And if you look at the decisions of the past that the ACC has made, you get it. It makes sense. It makes sense why UNC looks at the ACC or Florida State or Clemson and they're going, should we really
what are we even doing
let them
here?
Potentially make these horrible decisions or these decisions that are – and they're not even that they're bad decisions. It's just that somebody else made a bunch of better ones. At the time – this was the right decision. At the time, the 2036 grant of rights was the right call. However, the details of it maybe weren't.
Well,
I don't know if
more opportunities to renegotiate. There should have been more opportunities early on. Because early on, once the conference was solidified, kind of went on a bit of a heater there for a little bit.
Well, the landscape
and just weren't able to we weren't able to renegotiate and capitalize on it.
Yeah, it was too long, and by the time we got to this point, like all the other media rights had re-upped. And
can you imagine if we had been able to renegotiate this contract in the middle of the Alabama-Clemson rivalry? ACC. What are you talking about? ACC dead? Can you imagine? I mean,
but that's the same thing with the Pac-12. You're just echoing what the Pac-12 did.
Yeah.
If right?
Exactly.
So
this wouldn't be a conversation if that happened.
I agree.
It's just
last word, Rick. I'm going to move on to comments.
I actually do have to go here in a couple of minutes.
Oh, you got to go, Coach. Okay.
Not just yet. We got a little bit more time,
okay.
but
all right.
I want to get through the rest of this.
Put your hand up and let me know, and then I'll let you do an outro. Okay.
Copy
that. And that goes for you too, Rick. You can leave whenever you want to too.
Okay, cool. No, last word on what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Last word on what?
I just wanted to put a bow on that conversation, what we were talking about. We reviewed the conference and the schools that really have.
We didn't talk about Georgia Tech.
Well, that was set aside because you spent 20 minutes on Georgia Tech. If you want to talk about Georgia Tech more, go ahead.
I think Georgia Tech could go either way. I think I think a lot of the right decisions are being made, and they are being made at the right time. The biggest problem is the brand, but I think the biggest advantage Georgia Tech has is that they are aware. They are precisely aware of what is going on and what their weaknesses are, and they are actively trying to correct them.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech has done all the right things since they got rid of the guy you hired as your DC for some reason.
We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, look, I don't have much to say about it. It is what it is. I think Georgia Tech has probably got a 50-50 shot between the Big 12 and the Big 10.
I would lean a little bit more Big 12, but I don't think that would be a bad thing. I think they would be a pretty good brand for the Big 12. I think there's a lot of potential for Georgia Tech there. I think the Big 12 might be able to see that. They could be an anchor in Georgia. They could eventually eat at that market share that the Bulldogs have.
I think, Steve, you're prescient.
Again, the right decisions are being made.
I 100,000% agree with you. You want to say anything last Rex, since this is your topic, anything you want to say last about Georgia Tech before I move on to Kerry Go-Knowles super chat?
No, let's go.
All right, let's do it. Kerry Go-Knowles, again, a valuable member of the Mafia family, $5 super chat. Pitt should stay in the ACC and make it great again.
All right.
Well, I will tell you this, as a sitting Big 12 O-file, Pitt right now is on my wish list, 7th or 8th, if I recall. It's the top 4 that everybody knows. Then Louisville's number 5, but easily could become number 1. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and then Pitt.
I think you guys should want NC State.
We do want NC State. Did I not say NC State?
No.
Oh, sorry, NC State after Georgia Tech. I apologize.
So this will be the last thing I say. I think, for better or worse, I think NC State and North Carolina want absolutely nothing to do with each other. At least the fan bases do.
Sure.
So it's not a match.
There is very little respect there. There's very little mutual anything. It's not like Duke, Carolina. We're like, yeah, we hate them, but it's like it's kind of like the Texas rivalries. All right, but we got you next year. That kind of deal where there's a little bit more respect there. There's a lot of history. There's a lot more success. All that kind of stuff. I think if North Carolina fans and NC State fans had their way, they'd never play each other again.
No way.
Now,
really?
Is every UNC and NC State fan willing to admit that? Probably not. But I think at the core, there's a lot more people that would lean that way than you think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty strong.
And don't get me wrong, it hurts my soul to see Cooper Flagg doing what he's doing. It sucks.
Well, I mean,
but I can at least admit that he's pretty darn good.
Yes, he very much is. So I apologize for leaving NC State out of my list, Coach. Totally an oversight.
No, you're good. I think they should want to go to the Big 12. They could be an anchor in the Big 12.
I completely agree with you. They're on the list. So let's see how aggressive Brett Yormark can get and how much money he can get from private equity and how they can manage that, the exit fees, negotiate those down possibly. We'll see. We'll see in the coming days. I'll give you a chance to sign yourself out, Coach.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Bomber.
You bet.
Rick, this was it's good to talk to a Georgia Tech fan. I don't get that opportunity very often.
We'll have to do this again.
North Carolina.
For sure, man.
And you've got some serious passion, man. It's cool to see. And it's not just for your school; it's for the game itself. And I think a lot of people need to take that to heart. If you love your school, you love what's best for your school, and what's best for your school at the end of the day is what's best for the game.
Sure. Thanks.
But
all right.
Anyway, folks, that'll do me.
Sidelines, UNC, look them up. Follow them on Twitter.
A lot of fun.
And this is an ongoing conversation. This realignment stuff's not going away.
Oh, yeah.
And I appreciate you being here. We'll do this again, certainly with Rec. That sounds like a lot of fun.
For sure.
Have a good one, fellas.
All right, we'll see you, Coach. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Clap him out. Moen, you're watching, coming on. I knew Moen would come on and do a sounder for me. I appreciate that. So you've been sitting out there in the comment verse. What's going on, Moen?
I actually just logged in to upload some assets for the new Friday show, but since you put me on the air, I'll talk, certainly. Rec Talk's here, so I got to give him one of these.
Like all the Italian fellows, I drink my whiskey beer. I'm a rambling wreck from Georgia, taking a hell of an engineer.
Hey.
Yeah, I am definitely on board for Georgia Tech to the Big Ten. I want it Miami, Georgia Tech, North Carolina. If North Carolina falls the same way, but
I would love that.
Listen, guys, it's crunch time here. The SEC is in media negotiations for a 9th conference game. Do not be shocked if the Big Ten is in negotiations in short order for a 10th conference game.
So you got two non-con games now.
Yeah,
just 2 non-conference, and one of them will be for the SEC scheduling agreement,
Oh, here we go again.
and the other one will be for a local smaller school to make sure that we help support their athletic departments.
Do you think that's going to happen though? Because all these teams are,
He really does. He really
especially
does.
the SEC. Our problem is playing UMass or Arizona State or whoever.
Yeah, no, listen, I think this timing with the scheduling agreement, it just makes more sense to me. Listen, Georgia Tech, Georgia, if there's a Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement, that's one game.
That'd be a big one.
That's one game. Same thing if the Big Ten whiffs on North Carolina and they add Virginia instead. That's the oldest rivalry in the South right there. That checks the mark of another SEC Big Ten cross-conference game. So I think some of these things are already kind of, if Florida State goes to the SEC, Miami goes to the Big Ten, Miami versus Florida State. Hey guys, that's an SEC Big Ten crossover game right now. That crosses games off the schedule. So I think it's entirely possible if the Big Ten goes to 24. And I think that becomes more likely now that the ACC is sort of blowing up as we speak, as we're watching it fall.
Yeah.
The Big Ten could go to 24, move back towards a division system, have 6 teams on the West Coast, have a 6-team Atlantic division, have a 6-team Rust Belt division, and have a 6-team Plains division.
How about leaders and ledgers or leaders and loonies or whatever those were? Why don't you use those names anymore?
Well, some of the leaders turned out not to be great leaders, and some of the legends turned out not to be great legends. So,
all right, welcome to the show, Moen, and his no Super League scheduling agreement master plan. If you believe the Big Ten's going to 24 teams, certainly follow Moen, and he will tell you about it.
Yeah. I mean, can we also say, I mean, this is that would be the death of any group of 5 team.
Oh, absolutely.
Relevant ever.
That's a different organization entirely. I agree.
Yeah. They're just not able to schedule games with anybody like in the SEC or big.
Let's get to as many comments as we can. We got so many people watching. I want to thank everybody for being here. We're almost 2 hours in. We are talking ACC, everything with the ACC. If you're on Twitter, make sure you jump over to YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. That really helps us. And then give us a like and leave us a comment. We do pay attention to that stuff. Turn on your notifications. And last but not least, if you want your comment to be guaranteed read, make it a super chat. Okay. RT knows the code. Not only is a member of the College Football Mafia family, but if you use my name in one of your comments, I'm more likely to read it. All right. So he says Bombers top 4. And I will say in order, for the Big 12, if I had my pick, I would go Florida State, Miami, Clemson, UNC. Rec, if you're making up your own league in those 4 schools, what's your order in taking them?
If I'm cannibalizing teams from the ACC,
you can take them wherever you want as long as they're in the ACC footprint.
Well, I think to be reasonable, you got to have Clemson, FSU, Miami in some order. I would put Clemson above FSU right now. And then I wouldn't pick UNC. Again, I just don't understand the massive appeal of UNC. I would probably take Georgia Tech. I'm going to be a homer here. I'm going to take
That's
Georgia
fair.
Tech at 4.
Absolutely. Moen will explain Georgia Tech to you.
Explain it.
Sorry, not Georgia Tech. I apologize. We'll explain UNC.
Well, here's the thing. I think the UNC, it depends on which way they fall, and I think they're leaning towards SEC right now. I think UNC falls to the SEC. I think if the Big Ten picks up anybody from the ACC, number 1, Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
They're an exception all the ways, yes.
They carry the weight. They carry some money.
Yep.
That'll get that money up. Then you take Georgia Tech, you take Miami, and that gets you your 3 more over there. And then I think you take Stanford and you take Cal to finish out the West Coast pod. Again, Cal is not a great athletic school, but the Big Ten loves nerds. We love nerds here in the Big Ten. That's why we want Georgia Tech. We want to play them in a rivalry game with Purdue every year for the train wreck trophy.
All right.
Hey, there you go. Kerry Gonolz is hot tonight. Love you so much, Kerry. Thank you for all of your support and certainly for your membership. Mo, can I get a sounder?
Well, he doesn't need any milk. He's got all the milk he needs. Let's
Yeah,
give
we don't
him
need milk for him.
Here, I don't make the rules.
I don't make the rules, ma'am. I just think them up and write them down.
$5 super chat from Kerry. I'm so over the Big Ten. Tired of the noise, and I would rather FSU eat crow and join the SEC. The Big Ten hasn't won much anyways, not counting 100 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I seem to recall a team from the Big Ten winning a national championship this year.
I do feel the Big Ten retirement, though. I do understand Florida State feeling jilted and not appreciated and treated like I have to bow and scrape to be in the Big Ten's presence. If I was a FSU fan today, not a year ago or 2 years ago, today, I would want to go to the SEC just because the
I don't blame
Big
them.
Ten's
I think they're
terrible
more
to Florida State.
Listen, I think you got to know something about Big Ten. It's the same thing that Pac-10 had.
Ego,
we're arrogant.
stupidness.
We're elitists.
I like it.
That's just the model the conference has always run under. So, I mean, you got guys like Northwestern who hold just as much value of a vote as an Ohio State. So, you got to take care of everybody in the conference and meet everybody's needs. And like I said, there's a lot of nerd lovers in the Big Ten, Wisconsin and Michigan in particular.
Could we help you parlay Notre Dame in and do the Rudy matchup? Isn't that who he got a sack against? Was Georgia Tech in that movie?
Rudy was offsides. Let's be honest.
Oh gosh,
he was offsides. Obviously, Hollywood ending. I don't remember who he was playing in that movie, but
it was Georgia Tech.
It was Georgia Tech. That's fine. Listen, I have no problem having two teams with golden helmets in the conference.
That's right.
That's hilarious.
Big Ten, we're better than you.
Mitch Blanton checking in. Good to see you, Mitch. Thanks for being here tonight. Make sure you subscribe. Consider becoming a member. Hit that join button if you're watching on YouTube and become a member and watch those member videos. All right. I give David credit for admitting he was wrong on the subject matter for FSU, Clemson, and USC. Had a long shot of winning this case. Go Noles. I would just say this. He was right until he was wrong.
Well, they didn't win the case. They settled.
Certainly, you're right. You're exactly right. But let's be perfectly frank. We don't know why the settlement happened now, except for the one data point, which was last week. The Florida Supreme Court basically said, no more appeals. No more appeals, ACC. You can't come at us with 15 more writ larges that say we have to stay in court, because that's what they were banking on. That's what North Carolina was trying to extend the ACC and be first to the pulpit, and that wasn't going to happen. That's what I think the facts would back that up. Do you guys have any comments to that?
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick. David easily could have just not come on here.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. He came on, admitted he was wrong, talked about it. Got to give him kudos for that. That's what a man does. So kudos to David McKenzie. I wish some other people would adhere to that rule when they're wrong.
Oh, yeah. No one knows about being wrong more than old Rick. I eat my crow all the time. And you got, look, I'm not trying to incite the Florida State fan. You got to realize the world that I come out of being on live streams and having people trash me for 2-3 hours straight. That's the world. That's where I was born in fire.
You caught me mid-swallow. I apologize. Illini Ted, long-standing member of the College Football Mafia family. He's been with us now 12 months, a full year. Can you believe that, Moen? Another annual person, member in the house. All I can say, Illini Ted. I love that. I love that. Thanks for being here, Ted. We appreciate you so much and your continued membership. He says, let's not forget the SEC took shots at FSU also. They did. It's true. I mean, we have to be, it is factual that I wouldn't say took shots. I think they were derogatory, certainly at times. Sankey has not been a friend, but I think it was another level with the Big Ten. It felt, and I'll tell you why. First, it felt punitive, and the reason I feel that it was punitive is when Florida State filed their lawsuit to possibly get out of the ACC. There was an assumption, certainly by me, that if they could close that deal quick, 6 to 8 weeks, their destination was the Big Ten. And it felt like, why would Florida State file this lawsuit if they didn't have a guaranteed landing spot, right? Nobody can understand that. Well, 6 weeks went past, 8 weeks went past, and it kept going and going and going. And in that time, it felt like the Big Ten is just hammer them every day. You're not good enough. You're not AAU. You're not this or that. And I think that's the difference in the two things.
I think it was more of a cold shoulder from the Big Ten. Tony Petitti didn't fire any live rounds at Florida State that I can recall. And Greg Sankey definitely fired live rounds at Florida State. So, but I think Florida State did know they had some place to go. They were either going to the Big Ten or the SEC. They are too valuable to be left out of both of those conferences.
But that doesn't mean there was an opening waiting that day.
Not that day, but I'm sure if they would, because legal reasons, there couldn't be. Despite whatever somebody on Twitter writes, legal reasons there couldn't be a slot just waiting open for them. They had to legally be clear to talk to them.
You're right, Moen, but at the same time, on the flip side of that, the Big Ten didn't have to say anything. They didn't have to come out and actually say anything about Florida State, positive or negative. And they didn't do that. So
what do you think the Big Ten said about Florida State?
Well, the biggest one is leaking to the world that non-AAU but AAU. Oh, and research and not research.
Well, that was well before Florida State ever filed their lawsuit, though, Bomber. That goes back to Kevin Warren when he was commissioner of the Big Ten.
Well, I didn't say who the commissioner was. I'm talking about the Big Ten and Florida State.
Right, but that information actually leaked before they even had Washington and Oregon on board.
Again, that doesn't matter to me. I'm talking about the Big Ten and Florida State. That's it.
But how does that directly aggrieve FSU? That would apply to any school that doesn't meet those requirements, right?
I know, but you can do that silent. You don't have to do it on Twitter. You don't have to do it on social media. You don't have to send out proxies to do things. And no, this second, I don't have a quote from any one individual, but I've been doing this a little while. And I remember there were a bunch of hits at them. So
probably from the fan base. I don't know that any administrator said anything publicly.
Well, the biggest two are research and AAU, and they came from, as far as I'm concerned, talking heads of the Big Ten.
Well, they'll probably go to the SEC. Also, Buffs, see you in Boulder Rec. I will see you there. I don't know if I'm going to be going to that one, but I'm excited for that game.
You're going to Boulder?
No, I don't think that I am.
I've been there before. It is a beautiful setting to watch.
I was born in Colorado Springs, so I probably
so you know that.
Yeah,
you know better than I do.
Well, I was like 2 when I left. My dad was in the military.
Rocky Mountain High. Kerry Nolan, do we have that short, Moen? Rocky Mountain High is a.
We're gonna get copyright struck.
Yeah, I hate that. All right,
Kerry, get struck. You'll get demonetized on this.
We don't want to do that.
Yeah, it'll knock us off the air for a few seconds while
we do not want to do that. All right, Kerry Go Knowles, another $5 super chat. But the ACC said they were going all the way, no budging. What happened? Oh, and OSU and Michigan are the only two to win the championship in the last 100 years.
Well, that's not true, Kerry. Penn State has won one. Penn State's won 2, actually. Minnesota's won a couple. But yeah, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. The SEC's been on a dominance streak in the playoffs. And then suddenly everybody could pay players, and fortune seems to have changed for some reason.
And then Ohio State ran through them in the playoffs, didn't they? My God.
Here's a comment from Morris Simmons. Thanks so much, Morris. Great to see you. Thanks for being a member of the Mafia family. The investment in Tallahassee all points to the Big Ten, and several Big Ten vlogs are saying FSU. I refuse to repeat reporting anything like that. The people that are going out and saying 100%, and I'll say 1, genetics 56. If you're following genetics 56 on Twitter, or you're getting any information from that dude, you probably don't want to be here. I'll just say that, because we are polar opposite the way we do things. We'll state the facts. You figure it out. Some people besides him, including him, tell you what to think and have certitudes, and we don't do that. So
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
want to make any comments about that?
Yeah, my grandma's hairdresser says that it's definitely the Big Ten, is what that kind of sounds like.
Here's my point of view on this, Bomber, and this isn't. I don't understand why people are making it seem like SEC is a less than conference to go to. It's still
It's
pretty damn
not.
good.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying you're
Uh-oh.
making investments in your research, but I mean, you got to keep in mind Florida is a fantastic research university. I believe Georgia just got AAU status. If they bring in North Carolina, that's number 4, I believe, among the public Ivies, depending on what list you go by. There's going to be some research monsters in the SEC in the next 25 years. So I could easily see Florida State being one of those.
Right?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, we were admonished earlier for talking about academics. I have nothing to say.
Admonished earlier. You can talk about academics as you want, but that doesn't win you a minute in football. So,
I mean, the only reason it matters is that my school's good at it. So I'm just going to reframe. Like, if I can't win an argument football-wise, I'm just going to reframe it to acacademics.
Okay, because
you need to get charts. You need charts.
Because you come from an academic school, so you're able to do that.
But the Big Ten does care, though. I mean, that's a fact.
There's no doubt they care. And Georgia Tech is primed and ready if those are the things they're going for. No, I don't deny that. Kerry Go knows again, a $2 super chat. Got a lot to say today, Kerry does. My bad, Moen. I forgot about Penn State. Owning mistakes. I like that.
Are they going to get over the hump in the next 5 years?
I don't know if Penn State fans on the channel aren't really big fans of what I have to say about Penn State.
I think Franklin is not the guy. That's what
I don't think Franklin's the guy either, and they don't like to hear that. So, but I will tell you this, Kerry. You also forgot Minnesota, and if you don't believe me, Greg Pflugar will tell you. Just wait 5 minutes.
If he's still in the chat, he will admonish you.
That's right.
Justin Coos Corner. Definitely one of our contributors and somebody you guys all follow and watch his show, Coos Corner, on YouTube. UNC is not that well liked by other ACC schools, from what I hear. I have heard that as well. They're sort of snobby.
No, well, I'll tell you why. For me, is they cheated for a decade and nothing happened amongst all sports. All right, this happened. Georgia Tech gets an ACC title taken away for giving a tracksuit to somebody. They're given everything they want by the conference. The whole Tobacco Road is kowtowed to, and that would be why I hate them. But yeah, a lot of schools don't like. It's not just North Carolina; it's primarily them, but all the Tobacco Road schools. I think there's kind of an us against them mentality. What do you mean? Whoa, they admitted to this.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that. Do you have anything to add to that, Moen?
Yeah, there's a reason they call it the All Carolina Conference. It all centers around Carolina, founding members. The cheating scandal you're talking about, I look, again, the NCAA has not had teeth for the last 10, 15 years.
They may disappear in college football.
They may disappear. And it
they did for Missouri, because what the NCAA said is we don't rule on academic matters. Then Missouri self-reported like some tutoring instance, and they had scholarships revoked.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So there's no look. I mean, I'm sure we don't want to get into bashing the NCAA, but I mean, they've.
I don't know. Around here, that's okay.
They've selectively enforced rules, and that's part of the reason we're in the spot we're in today.
The NCAA is one of the most corrupt organizations in the United States, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And I think the idea that they reconstitute with the A4 conferences being the bosses of all the championships and all the rules and enforcement will completely change college football as we know it.
Well, yeah, look what happened with Ole Miss and when they were paying players before it was cool.
Sure.
A guy went in and testified who was paid by them. He also said 4 other schools that he was offered money by, and all that was redacted by the NCAA.
Yeah. Okay. Becky Go Huskies contributor, full-time member of the College Football Mafia family. Becky, we appreciate you. Thank you for all your hard work. Certainly supporting you and Pickles, supporting the Big Ten Mafia. We'll just say we'll call it part of it's our brand, right? And we appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Washington lost TV dollars. The conference levied that penalty against them, not the NCAA. No one else got that from the PAC.
What happened to the PAC?
This is out of context, I think. Moen, do you know what she's talking about?
I think she's talking about an academic scandal that the NCAA didn't hold them accountable.
I
the
see.
conference actually held them accountable, which is what
Okay.
the Big Ten did last year to Michigan. They held Michigan accountable
Yeah,
because they knew the
right, sure they did.
NCAA. Well, they knew the NCAA wasn't going to do dick about it. So
Right. Yeah, but it
Oh,
was a slap on the wrist. It didn't do anything in their championship.
The Connor Stallion stuff.
yeah,
Can we just say
Yeah.
that sounds like a movie? That doesn't even sound like real life.
I think it's in Netflix production right now.
I bet they will make a movie, but who would you pick to play Connor Stallions, and why would it be Leonardo DiCaprio?
Oh wow, it's a
oh, I wouldn't pick Leonardo DiCaprio. I wouldn't do that to him.
Oh, that's a great answer though. That's the first
I don't
thing
know.
I
He's got
thought
to
of
be
too.
somebody who's just inherently evil.
Leo's a
Matt
little
Damon.
like that.
I would pick Matt Damon.
Evil? Matt
Damon.
Damon's kind of innocuous. Let me
Matt
think about that.
Damon.
I might come back with a different name, but that was a good one. That immediately was my pick as well, Rick.
Oh, I tell you who would play it. Have y'all seen The Green Mile?
Yes.
Yeah.
The guy who played Percy in that movie would be a good Connor Stallions.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
Benny
think the
Benjamin.
best pick, the pick you're not saying is Tom Hanks playing Connor Stallions.
I just kept watching and
He would-
watching. their
He would win an
practices.
Oscar playing Connor Stallions. I guarantee you. Tom Hanks. That would be great.
Mo, can we write the script of this and become millionaires instantly?
Let's do it right now. Bookmark it.
Go for it. I would cast that movie.
That would be fantastic. Bo Weevil says, yep, Tobacco Road is ruined, the ACC. Okay. We get to some earlier comments here. Bo Weevil also said, pure hate between UNC and NC State. I get the hate. I wasn't aware that because they were both in the ACC forever, that they would burn each other to the ground. If it's really that bad, I thought that bad was with Duke. So my fault. Not in the region. I didn't realize that position with it. NC State. That's certainly the way it is in Utah with BYU and Utah. So
Yeah, that surprised me. He said he would be okay not playing them. Like, look, no one hates Georgia more than I do, but I want to play them every year. That was interesting.
Yep,
James
exactly
Woods. That's a good pick.
That is a good one. He is slimy.
James, he's a little old though. Gotta
Well, you
keep
can
thinking.
de-age
There's
him.
better out there.
A little
Just keep
post production.
Rock and Rant, contributor extraordinaire. You guys helping us forever with ACC news and all college football. Certainly one of our full-time contributors. The New York Mets and New York Yankees and the New York Jets and New York Giants always wave hello to the conversation about cannibalizing media market.
Yeah. That's like Subways opening 5 feet from each other, but with NFL teams.
But the NFL's unique, isn't it, guys? Can't we say that out loud? The NFL supersedes every other league but the Champions League and Premier League in the entire world. It's a different animal. I don't think it's apples and oranges with college football.
I don't know, but does that apply to their markets, though? I mean, I think
I
you make
think
the point that they're cannibalizing their own New York market.
So let me do this. Let me just bring this back up. Let's quickly look at our viewership numbers, and let's work backwards and say if that market has a low number, is it associated with a professional team? Dallas Cowboys, I think it hurts them. Boston College is New Jersey. I would say was that the Nets? Not Nets, but
they're Jets
is what I was thinking.
They're
football.
They're competing with the Patriots, right?
Oh, sorry, Patriots. My bad.
Yeah.
Wake Forest.
Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
That would be your closest one. Hornets.
UVA, Washington D.C. Right?
Yeah,
Redskins?
they'd be Redskins and Washington Wizards.
Okay. Cal.
San Francisco 49ers.
Okay. Duke.
Oklahoma State. Duke again. Carolina Panthers. Charlotte Hornets.
Virginia Tech.
That's a good one. Now,
Yeah,
see,
I don't know. Sure, I don't know. Pittsburgh.
they're not as close to Washington D.C., but I believe they do bleed into the Washington D.C. DMA. So that
What
would
about
again be
What about Tennessee, Moen?
Tennessee.
The Titans.
I know,
Yeah,
but
but
as we're going through these teams,
Right, but you're
Virginia Tech-
bleeding into Eastern Tennessee, whereas the Titans would be in Western Tennessee.
Oh, okay. You see, that's your area. So
But-
we'll say Virginia Tech's the first outlier. Okay.
Well, and this is going to be different depending on teams in the South because the NFL is kind of divided, or college football viewership is kind of divided, and the Southeast it's the heaviest.
While that's true, I'm making a point here for viewership, though. That's why we're talking about it,
Okay.
right? And all these schools are in pro markets, really close to pro markets. We'll leave Virginia Tech by itself. Pitt,
Obviously.
obviously. NC State, Carolina.
Yeah, you're still Carolina Panthers.
UNC's Carolina. Okay, so
Carolina
now we're getting
Panthers.
better numbers, but Stanford, professional.
49ers.
Louisville, that's Kentucky, that's Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't know who the closest team to Louisville would be. Probably Kansas City.
No, there's got to be somebody closer. How about like New Orleans?
Cincinnati would probably be the closest. Cincinnati or Indianapolis.
Oh,
I'll look it
Indianapolis.
up.
That's a good
Because
guess.
I've made that drive from Cincinnati to Louisville, and I've done it in under 2 hours.
Okay.
I'm not recommending that, but
The
I've done it.
Bengals. Yeah, the Bengals are the closest. They're about 100 miles northeast of Louisville.
So we're going to leave Virginia Tech out. We're going to leave Louisville out. Georgia Tech, self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Miami, self-explanatory. Clemson,
South
Carolina,
they don't really have a pro team.
or
Yeah, the
Georgia.
closest. You know what? I bet Atlanta's closer to them. That would not
Yeah.
surprise me.
I think you're
Maybe
right. They're probably
maybe
closer to the
Clemson's a
Panthers.
tweener. Then maybe they're one of the tweeners. And then Florida State. I mean, just pick a team, right? So this is my point about the ACC, and we'll break this down in other shows. And Wild U will get into the details of these numbers. But as we clawed through the ACC, the biggest difference in this, from this perspective, that you compare and contrast to the Big 12, is the Big 12 in football media markets, instead of being 15 out of 17 or 14 out of 17, it's literally like almost 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Dallas, obviously, TCU, Baylor, but for the most part, the Big 12 does not have this problem. And that's where the viewership numbers hit so much. To sort of circle back to the original comment, it's why it matters. It's why the ACC is different. And I don't think it's a correlation you can make, in my opinion, to the New Jersey, New York, all those brands together. I think professional teams eat at these viewership numbers.
So your argument is the Big 12 is in a stronger spot because of a lack of competition with NFL markets?
I'm saying you have less taking away from your viewership numbers. So you don't have as much competition for your viewership. And in that case, then I think that definitely hurts the ACC that they're up against so many pro teams.
I mean, it's interesting. A lot of the Big 12 teams are in the Midwest, like Utah and stuff, who don't have
Right.
big viewership numbers. That's why they don't have a pro.
Well,
team.
Utah and BYU average over 1 million.
Okay.
Look at this. Tell me who's 1 million here, Rick.
Yeah, you got 3 teams.
Yeah, well, I'll give you Georgia Tech and I'll give you Louisville, but you get the top 5.
No, I see what you're saying.
You see, whereas the Big 12 average is like 900,000 or 1 million. Not 1 million. It's around 800,000 or 900,000.
I see what you're saying. I think the ACC has way bigger problems than competing with NFL markets, though.
Well, sure. I mean, this is just one of multiple
You're right.
challenges.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting how much of that is people that are just like if you're a Boston College fan, some of this could have to do with that your college team is just not very good.
Absolutely true. That's another one of the factors. No
Yeah.
doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, we're extrapolating. We're taking information and trying to project challenges for the ACC because that's the topic du jour today. But I think these numbers by themselves tell such a huge story that if you're watching us for the first time, it's the first time you've ever seen College Football Mafia Network, first time you've ever seen me or Rec or Moen, right now, this is the story that we're trying to tell. We're trying to paint a picture and say, take this information, and then you go and figure out whether you think your team really deserves it in the power conferences. How many of these schools do you think deserves to be in a power football conference, Rec? A conference that is all football.
Deserves. I mean, this sounds like the 4-team playoff again. I don't really know what deserves means.
Not the right word. How about just in a grouping, to be in maybe a larger grouping?
I think. Let's see. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say that you probably got 6 teams that are in contention for that. 7 teams. So less than half of the conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm just going to be honest, gut level.
Well, and I think that's fair. You're being fair to yourself, right? I mean, you're evaluating your own thing. But Georgia Tech, right, it's on the rise. They did what they needed to do to get into people's minds. You're peaking at the exact right time. Who's not peaking right now?
Yeah.
You see the schools that are going to be struggling to find a home.
Yeah. Boston College, Wake, UVA, Cal, and so if you're in that group, then you're looking for some other reason, like with Cal, right?
Exactly.
You're having to find some way to overcome the viewership hole you're in.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. You have to get around or over impediments. And I think pro league comparison is that's hard. You know, when you're splitting the DMA up. How much bandwidth do you have if you're a 49er or what used to be a Raiders fan to dedicate to college football?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say because, and this is probably why your point is missed on me, and it's me. So it's me, not you.
I'm
because
sure
in the Southeast,
right?
No, it's not that. In the Southeast, you're either a college football fan or you're a pro football fan, and you're
I
not
agree.
both. Like it's starkly cut down that line. Also, in the Southeast, college football is akin to religion.
Yes.
I mean, there are people when I went to church growing up that did not like me personally because I was a Georgia Tech fan. Like that's how serious college football is, in the South. I don't know. Probably in like Ohio State country, it's probably something similar. I'm sure you have that analog up there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
A lot worse. It's a lot
worse.
It's worse. Trust me.
Wow. So like, I don't know if you have a kid, but like if they were going to marry a Michigan fan,
that would never happen.
Disown them.
I'd have a disowned child at that point.
But see, I think again, let's circle back to the ACC and say you're a Georgia Tech fan. Are you just chomping at the bit to get your hands around Syracuse today? Right? I mean, who really generates any interest?
Well, I mean,
certainly regionally, if not nationally.
I understand what you're saying, Nate, but again, it's not going to be based purely on a football perspective. It just isn't.
And I'm not saying it is.
Yeah, markets are going to come into play. Academics will come into play.
Sure.
As much as you want to admonish us for it.
I just think it's something that it's
somebody. Well, here's the thing, Nate. Some people prefer blondes. Some people prefer brunettes. You can have a blonde who's a 10 and a brunette who's a 10. And if you just prefer blondes, you're going to go for the blonde every time.
So this is the difference for me. I want everybody to compete in the same arena, regardless. Okay. That's my point.
Are you saying an even playing field?
Yeah. I would.
Football's never been that and will never be that.
Did you see my show last week about a Supra League?
I did not, and I apologize.
Don't apologize. It was
love
something
you.
else, and it's one of 3 ideas I have for some sort of I don't want to call it a super league, so I call it something else, a super league. And what I'm saying is, I think conferences should cease to matter when it comes to a top tier just play football. Like you came on the show, I just love football. Agnostic.
I love
in my
college
opinion,
football. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. College football to me is akin, well, religion. That's sort of a anyway.
Yeah, it's a bad one to bring up, but sorry.
But I want the most teams to compete at the highest level, whether that's 40 teams or it's 72 teams. It's not all teams. And
yeah.
then you could break into regions for travel. You have less expense going cross country essentially. And the best brands are playing for a true championship. That's my idea, and just take conferences completely out of it.
So you're just saying just model yourself after the NFL at this point.
Essentially, you're making a 72 team, best possible brands, 72, 40 to 72, and put them on the field and just play football.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, then the things, if you talk to the average college football fan about why they watch college football and not the NFL, it's the rivalries, it's the traditions, like Georgia Tech and Virginia,
Right.
Miami, Florida State, all of these things, and that's the reason I don't watch the NFL. So it would be tough for me as a college football fan.
Well, no. What if I tell you keep all your rivalries?
Yeah, but conferences are come into play in that too. Like that,
I think divisions come into play. Conferences, like
you're gonna have 2 conferences with like 8 divisions in them apiece.
Well, I don't care how you cut them up. The way you slice them up is by the total number of teams, right? But at the end of the day, if your rivals, everything you're talking about, the passion of college football, none of that changes. You play those teams every year. I don't care if it's cross division. I don't care what the segmenting is below that. I just want those teams to play. I want to see Georgia Tech play Georgia every year. I want that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see what you're saying, but from where I'm sitting, what you're talking about is not college football. Like, I hate the Pac-12 imploded, right? That was a big hit to me, and that the ACC is about to implode. Talking about an even playing field, though, the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, Notre Dame doesn't really count, but Ohio State, the Georgias, the LSUs, the Alabamas of the world are never going to let you have an even playing field where everyone's evenly competitive. It's just college. Like I said, college football has never been an even playing field. That's what the NFL has been. That's why if we went back and looked at the last 20 years of national champions, I'm sure you'd see the same names popping up there. There's teams that have never been in it. And that is due to the and not to even say all of the changes that are happening right now are increasing the parity. Yeah, you can do this $20 million and pay your players right with this court ruling. Every team's not going to have that. There's going to be teams that are struggling to do that.
Right.
So it's going to continue to be, I'm sure, similar to what it's been. But hey, it's a good point to make. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to end up becoming that in the next 15 to 20 years, if I were to bet.
Sure. Yeah, that's it's a dream scenario. It's a vision. I'm not saying it happens tomorrow, but structure, needs to be modified. Right now we're in a countdown and a consolidation phase. You say you hate to see the Pac-12 go. As a local, I love the Pac-10, if we're really talking about it. I love the Big 8. I love the Southwestern Conference. I love the original ACC. I love the original Big 10 without Penn State. I mean, all these things. I'm an old guy. I'm almost 55 years old. I want all those things, but money is destroying all of that.
Yeah. And there's
greed and money. There isn't. It's done.
And that's probably, I had Rock and Ran on last night, and he's like, I see what you're saying. I've just kind of come to a place of acceptance of it. And then I realize I'm going through the stages of grief. I've been in anger for a
Yeah.
good while now, and I guess I'll get to bargaining. Maybe I'm in bargaining now. Well, maybe if we can do this, we can get in the Big Ten.
I think here they are, by the way. These 5 stages of grief I have on a banner because what were we talking about, Moen? We were talking about
We were
was it
talking about
the
the ACC.
ACC. Yeah, we were saying ACC is going through these phases. And darn if we didn't turn out to be almost 100% right. And we talked about this exact thing at least a year ago.
Yeah. These look familiar to me. I recognize these now. This is making all the sense in the world. One day I'll get to acceptance.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Either way, I think Georgia Tech's going to be okay either way. Becky, go Huskies. Doesn't the ACC have the oldest rivalry in the South?
It does. The rivalry is named the oldest rivalry in the South.
And which one is that?
UNC Virginia.
Really?
Which doesn't get talked about much.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
In fact, last year, Virginia went down to Chapel Hill when UNC, I think they were a top 10 team, and beat them in their house when they were awful. So, yeah, there's a lot to that rivalry.
Yeah, I love learning stuff. That's cool. Skaven, yes, comes in always with a wink and a nod, saying Christoph Waltz for Connor Stanions. That guy scares me.
Yeah,
Christoph
he would
Waltz.
be. Yeah, like Connor Stallions to me is like a comical character. Christoph Waltz is a terrifying character.
He's a Gestapo SS guy forever in my brain. Literally,
Seth
if I saw him
Rogen.
walking down the street, I would be afraid of him.
Put Seth Rogen in there.
Oh, Seth Rogen or Christopher. Was it Christopher Waltz?
Christopher Walken?
Christopher Walken.
Give
Hey,
me a little more cowbell.
give me a little more binocular over here.
That's hilarious. Elliot Cruz, good to see Elliot. I saw you last night too. I recognize you, man. NC State will probably get AAU in the near future, but I don't think that gets interest from the Big Ten. Moen, is it enough or is it too late for NC State?
You know, again, I don't want to say never on any team. But I think if SEC gets into North Carolina, I think that's the only school that in North Carolina that's really heavily contested.
Not Duke.
Not Duke. Again, Duke's got a great basketball program, great private school, but I just don't see Duke getting in there.
Okay.
Interesting.
North Carolina State could be an SEC team. Could be. They may take them along with North Carolina.
Maybe.
They seem like more of an SEC team to me.
Maybe. I don't know. Moen knows I see NC State not in the same way. So, I love NC State, but I think they're a Big 12 school, personally. A2. Are you new to the channel? If so, make sure you subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know how we're doing. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on Twitter and all that other fun stuff. Florida State wants to be special. Why just be another school in the South when you can be one of the only ones? And he's talking about going to the Big Ten and being that sort of shining village on a hill or whatever it is in the Southeast.
Sure, if you can do it, if you can get in, sure.
Yeah, Florida State's main problem, and I've said this, it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You've got Miami and State.
Yeah.
There are two schools there in State. One of them's going to go to the SEC. One of them's going to go to the Big Ten. And the Big Ten and the SEC are going to leverage that fact to get the best deal from both of those teams.
Okay. Steele Austin, a newer member to the College Football Mafia family, but certainly representing Utah well. We appreciate you being here, Steele. Wake Forest is going to team up with Cal and invest big in their chess clubs.
Hey, I love chess. Shout out
like
to James Carlson and Hikaru Nakamura.
I would just say this. I think unless they get the tag along with Stanford, I don't. It's going to take a long time for Cal to build itself back up.
Well, here's a question. Is there any scenario for Wake Forest. Like if we just thought real hard for them to salvage something here.
They could go hat in hand to the Big 12 and beg and do what SMU did and basically say, don't pay us anything. We'll prioritize basketball, but please bring us in so we're not the Oregon State and Washington State. I absolutely could see all those schools, Boston College, Syracuse, anybody who's on the outside looking in, they're calling Brett Yormark right now.
Oh, basically say, we'll do it for free. I'll do it
Just
for free, chicken.
Save us.
Yeah.
Moen?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's still a possibility those schools just backfill and
Yeah, you
take that-
reform the ACC.
and take that sweet payout money for next 10 to 15 years and see what happens. And I mentioned it in our group chat earlier. I think it might be a little poetic if the ACC kind of implodes here and they have to go and merge with the Big East.
Oh, brother.
Whatever's left.
Oh,
That would be painful. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, frankly. And frankly, the Big East is good at what they do. I don't think they need to change anything. So,
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Buff says, Rec, I will for sure be at the 2026 game in Atlanta, and that will be a very hot ticket with all our Georgia boys. Well, hey, welcome to Atlanta where the players play. Let's do it.
all right, one last call. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and all that other stuff. Not going to say it again. We've got about 15 minutes. I've already got 34 bookmarks, so we're probably not going to take any new comments except for super chats. We'll go until I'm going to put a max on this. We'll go 25 minutes at the most. We might leave earlier, so
All right.
try
we're
to
gonna
get
do
it
that.
under.
Let me get a Diet Coke. If you didn't know, I get up in the morning, I drink one Diet Coke, and I try
Sure.
to do that 11 more times at least.
Okay, you do whatever you need. OPD Don coming in and representing. Good to see Opie, long-standing member, OG as it were. Auburn, Georgia is known as the Deep South's oldest. 129 meetings, but UNC Virginia is the oldest by 11 months, 130 meetings. I didn't know that about Auburn and Georgia. Let's give Rec a chance to put his headphones back on. Just reading this here, Opie says Auburn is the second oldest. Did you know that, right?
I didn't, but I would think clean old fashioned hate has to be up there too. I mean, Georgia Tech been playing a while. But yeah, hey, Auburn, Georgia's a big game. It's interesting because Auburn kind of does this football wise.
Right.
But yeah, that's usually a much tougher game than Georgia would ever like to admit.
Iron Bowl.
Iron Bowl.
All right. Tempest. Good to see you, Tempest. Another longstanding member of the Mafia family. Thank you for your membership and loyalty, Tempest. I say Duke be Big Ten. So we're going to run through a bunch of these comments, try to get as many as we can. Just quick thoughts. Duke to the Big Ten.
Moen
Either
would
one of
know
you.
more. I mean, I don't
think so. I don't think so. Their basketball brand is not enough. They're a good private school. But I mean, the research dollars, I don't know. Could be, if they whiff on North Carolina and they want to get into the state of North Carolina that badly, they could take a Duke. But I just don't see them picking Duke.
It's a fun want to, though. That's a fun wish. Duke in the Big Ten. I think that would be fun.
God, they'd get murdered in football, though.
Yeah, but I think, listen, guys, if you merge with the Big East, you could have Duke, Syracuse,
Sure.
Boston College, all the Big
St.
East basketball
John's,
schools,
Villanova,
St. John's,
Seton Hall,
Georgetown.
Yeah.
You could make your own kind of Ivy League conference.
Which
Good.
I would say is Immaculate's idea. Been long-standing. I mean, years he's been talking about that academic set. So the ACC disbands some way, somehow. Those schools get together and rebuild their conference, including Georgia Tech, and have a 10 or 12 team shrunken ACC, essentially.
You could call it the AAC, the All Academic Conference. Just drop a C and make it an A. And
AACC IMY, something like that.
Yeah.
In case you missed it. Becky says, I'm starting Wake to the Big Ten now. That's funny, Becky. There you go.
That's reasonable.
I remember somebody saying that was an SEC team. Oh, no,
Okay. Do you want to say it out loud? Because you and I both know who did it.
that would be Monty.
Yes,
Monty
it would
from the
be.
Monty Show.
But
Going
facts
through
are
the
facts.
checklist, said Wake Forest. That's an SEC team.
Duke. Duke is definitely a Big Ten team. Duke is shoe-in to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Okay, don't take those out of context. That somebody else said.
Clip it and then go on Twitter saying how dumb we are.
Exactly. People do that, believe me. Kerrigan knows. True story. Auburn got their colors from Virginia.
If that's true, that is kind of sad. Let's be honest.
Becky Go Huskies, $2 super chat. Who wins, a Demon Deacon or a Blue Devil in a fight?
I love these.
I
love
take
these
Duke.
questions. Well, first we have to admit how great of a mascot a Demon Deacon is. It's oxymoronic, pairing demon with deacon, and then a Blue Devil, which you would think they're cut from the same cloth, with one being a demon and the other
Right.
being a devil. I'd have to give it to the Demon Deacon because they're kind of doing what the Undertaker did later in his career with the motorcycle thing, and I got to respect that. Give me the Demon Deacons all the way.
Moen.
Yeah, no, working on the new stuff for the Friday show. I've had to go through a bunch of retro mascots and logos. I'm taking the Demon Deacon all day on that. Some of the logos for Duke in the early days were really terrible.
Yeah, the smile on the Duke demon looked kind of, I'm not going to say it, but he looked interesting.
All I'm going to say is Leitner is always open. I don't have any idea. No dog in the fight. Demon sounds bad. Blue Devil doesn't sound much better. So, RT, watch FSU say screw it and start a new conference with Notre Dame. Hey, look, I'd put maybe a 2 or 3% chance that could happen. What do you guys think?
1 out of 50. I think that's
that?
0% chance.
Okay. Moen?
I think it's very low percentage, and I chalk that up to Notre Dame's arrogance.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So much for the Academic Alliance / 10-team league with Notre Dame. Anyway, Mr. Monkey says, it's been a minute, man. Where you been? I missed you. They got everything that could be in a settlement. That's FSU and Clemson. It's worth something to be out of court and have a number. While that's true, the flip side of that is the minute you give a number, everybody can try to reach it. That's the problem, and why the haziness of the lawsuit kept the ACC vibrant. That is no longer hazy.
You know, I think that brings up another good point. In the spirit of realignment, we are not seeing realignment on YouTube, though. And you're talking about a number. Moen, how much would it cost for me to buy your channel?
Well, our channel isn't worth that much, so I'd sell it on the cheap.
Okay.
Give me $25,000.
He doesn't. It's not his decision.
Well,
give Nate 10,000 and give me 10,000, and we'll
yeah,
talk.
that's that. We'd have to negotiate that down anyway.
All right. Well,
so keep going.
We'll talk.
Okay. All right. Look, never say never. My grandpa told me that. And unless something is contractually out of play, anything's possible.
Never's a long time. That's what I was told.
Yeah. James Davis, good to see you, James. New to the channel, I think. Make sure you follow all of us and subscribe. Really appreciate it. If SEC takes FSU and Clemson, they would be the top conference hands down because they would have all but 3 natties in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, what is the likelihood they both go to the same conference, though? It's got to be pretty low. Like if FSU went to the SEC tomorrow, Moen, I mean, you probably speak to it. You're going to grab Clemson.
I don't think so. I really don't believe. I don't believe the Big Ten would do it, and I believe the SEC would grab both of those quickly. Again, for the exact they're great brands. They're great brands that are in your footprint. If they're going to 9 conference games, ESPN is going to pay you more money for that, and they are going to pay you more money to make sure that they keep Florida State and Clemson in-house.
Okay.
It's hard to argue that that argument. I mean, I think that Mullen has excellent points. I always thought that they were Big Ten bound, both of them. The duplicating markets thing that we just went through the list of the market share in pro cities. It's difficult for me to envision. Well, we haven't even talked about it tonight, but just so everybody knows, all this realignment stuff is fun to talk about. But until somebody gets an invite to go somewhere else, nobody's going anywhere. They're still locked in. They're still ACC. There's no money being spent. They have to have a destination. And I find it hard to believe if it's not the Big Ten. I think there's a reason why Clemson and Florida State haven't already announced something, because I don't know that they have a guaranteed spot. Yeah. I just don't know. That's why we're here. Realignment continues to pay bills. Elliot Cruz says it wasn't a zero-sum game. ACC got stability for another 5 years. That's completely untrue. Reports of the death of ACC once again have been greatly exaggerated. If you're still watching, Elliot, I'm not sure where you're getting. It wasn't a zero-sum game. It kind of was. The ACC is a conference that people were actively suing to get out of, like spending their own money to get out of.
Well, look, like in politics, they got something better: the appearance of stability.
Ooh, I'm going to steal that and use that on Twitter. That's exactly right.
You got the appearance of stability.
That is brilliant, Rick.
I know, right?
That is brilliant. Why didn't you DM that to me? That is absolutely true. They bought the appearance of stability. That's right.
Yeah. And look, it might actually give you stability for 5 years. The point is you don't know. And it looks like it probably won't. But you get to put this on your little business card now for Jim Phillips. Like, look, stability. See, it's good.
I think I just laugh at this ruefully. When the media extension was announced and the whole world was saying, wow, we're saved, the ACC this. And I was in the corner going, no, I don't think so.
We're saved.
And it was specifically for this reason. They extended only because they kind of had to. Why not? They don't lose anything. Because if the ACC disappears, the media deal disappears too. So they're really not committed to anything.
Yeah, I was wrong. I really felt like, okay, well, that's something. I didn't think it saved us, on the spot. But I thought it was a good sign. And I really thought, for what I've been wrong at, I really thought the ACC would fight until the last dying day.
I did too.
In court, and I was wrong.
There was a gun at their head to make this decision.
Well, like we talked about, they either thought we might lose this, or, like you said earlier, Discovery is going to make us look dumber than we've already made ourselves look.
Like those Pac-12 outtakes that we got in email form. Exactly the same thing. Mo, you want to add anything to that one?
No, the ACC best case scenario, they just put an expiration date on the conference.
Look at that. Perception. I love that appearance. I have to use that immediately. That was fantastic. Conundrum. Big Ten planting their flag in South Bend, Palo Alto, Chapel Hill, and Miami. If that happened, that would be incredible. I don't think it's going to. Certainly, I don't think Notre Dame's going anywhere. But what do you guys think about that?
I don't know. Like, what? This would be my question. What makes Notre Dame move?
I see no reason for them to join a conference.
I absolutely do. If UNC moves, they're out of there. If Florida State moves, they're out of there.
What was that? Out of what? They're not in anything.
Well, they are. They are technically. They are a voting member of.
They're a voting member, but they're not. They're not in the conference, so they're not leaving anything.
Okay, but they would have to join a conference at that point. They could no longer remain independent.
Oh yeah, I continue.
Here's the thing: their media deal is so tied now to Florida State, Miami, and Clemson because of how the way the NBC deal is worded. They have to have the best games possible. So, I mean, if USC pushes them off their schedule, that's one less marquee game for Notre Dame to sell to NBC every 2 years. Now imagine if Miami leaves for the Big Ten. That's one less marquee game in the ACC for Notre Dame. Florida State and Clemson leave for the SEC. That is now 3 less marquee games for Notre Dame in the ACC. The value of their NBC deal starts going down.
That's true, and they couldn't just say they couldn't just schedule a bunch of non-con games because you don't have enough games on your schedule to schedule Notre Dame if you're in these conferences.
Yeah, and at most you can only schedule one marquee non-con game per season, like a marquee one.
Right, and you're not going to pick Notre Dame for half of your teams.
Right.
If the ACC as an entity is not the same ACC that they originally contracted with, yes, they have those guaranteed games set up with those individual schools, but nothing in what you just said is an impetus to join the Big Ten.
I disagree with you, Bomber. Simply put, from the media deal will depreciate. They will start falling behind in money wise, and they want to have a stable conference for their Olympic sports.
Okay, no. We're talking football.
Well, I think
Don't
you
get
could sidestep even their media rights. Who are they going to play?
Well, nobody's going to turn down Notre Dame.
They're not going to be able to play them, though.
Sure they will. You can play Big 12. You can play Mountain West. You can play other schools. Notre Dame just proved they don't have to have a better strength of schedule than, what was it, 68, and still made the national championship game. Look, at the end of the day, it's Notre Dame. They're going to get whatever they want, whenever they want it. I know Moen hates that, and he might be completely right. But he's just like I'm jaded BYU. He is jaded Big Ten and
I get it.
Ohio State. And honestly, he wants to put the tamper down on Notre Dame a little bit, and joining a league would do that.
But they're not going to be able to schedule SEC or Big Ten teams. So you're saying they'd basically enter a similar agreement they had with the ACC with the Big 12?
They could, or they don't sign an agreement at all.
Okay.
They could, or they just go all one-off games. Or they continue to play the games. If you're USC, you want them on the schedule or off the schedule. If you're Ohio State, you want them on regardless of the conference you're in, Moen?
No, not if you're playing against an SEC team every year, Bomber. If you're playing 10 conference games and an SEC team, that is 11 tough games.
I know. Why would Notre Dame opt into that?
Well, that's something better. You're gonna be able to face the rivals that you've always faced. You say Notre Dame gets what they want. Notre Dame would get what they want by joining the Big Ten. They would basically be able to name who they want to come along with them.
They could have joined the Big Ten 20 years ago.
They could have joined the Big Ten.
They could have joined the 10 15 minutes ago. They haven't.
Yeah, but we're talking about hypothetical where the ACC, a bunch of ACC teams go to the Big Ten, right?
No, I actually think, well, again, Moen and I disagree. That's what's great about this College Football Mafia Network. We disagree all the time. I don't think the Big Ten goes past 20. So I think they'll get a team or two. Notre Dame's the exception. I think Notre Dame could take, for instance, California and Stanford and go to 21 and have 3 conferences of 20, 20, and 21. I could see that.
Boy, how many phone calls do you think South Bend is getting from California right now?
I think they put them on block at this point, I think, probably.
Who is that? It's Stanford again. Just let it go to voicemail.
You got to remember, Stanford would be okay. Stanford could go independent. They care about Olympic sports, not football. They could go independent and just play West Coast schools with all their rowing.
Hey, they get Andrew Luck now.
They could.
How dare you say that?
Sorry, go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Notre Dame, you got to remember, the only reason Stanford and Cal are in the ACC is because of Notre Dame.
That's true.
They did everything they could to pull them into the ACC, which part of the reason that led to the instability in the ACC was them pulling so damn hard to get them in.
It was counterproductive, yes.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten could obviously tell Notre Dame, we'll take Stanford and Cal. And you come in and you get to play USC every year. You get to play Stanford every year. You can play Cal every year.
Wait, I might have, maybe you've already realized this. Again, I'm a little slow. I've been hit too many times in the cocoa nut in my playing career. But can you make the case that Notre Dame actually killed the ACC?
yeah.
Oh no, they did years ago.
Because bringing
Listen-
in Cal and Stanford and having to revenue share an equal
Yes.
rate with them,
Yes.
if I'm Florida State, pisses me the F off.
No, Mo and I both agree on that one.
No, I
Absolutely.
can go back, Rec Talk. I think
Yeah.
Notre Dame, you go back, they're responsible for the death of pretty much every conference.
College football in general.
College football in
007.
general.
Wow.
Well, if you think about it, if you go back enough years, you can see the choices. Certainly since 1989 or 88 when they won
Yeah,
their national
you go to
championship.
late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah,
If they'd have joined the Big Ten, they were invited along with Penn State to be number 11 and 12.
right.
They chose not to. If they go to 12, the Big Ten goes to 12. They have a championship game. They never expand. There's no place for Nebraska to go. Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma. That Big 12 stays together.
Yeah.
Man.
There's some history in there. The bottom line for me, and then we'll get on a couple more comments. We're going to get out of here. I think Notre Dame can get what they want without having to give up almost anything. So why would they? I always preface every one of these questions with why. What's the reason why? And I don't think money is enough. I think Notre Dame enjoys their uniqueness. You talk about being stuck up. Nobody Notre Dame. The entire country, Notre Dame is unique, and I do not think they want to give that away for a single penny or $100 million. I don't think they do it.
All right.
What's their endowment, Moen? Are they in the $4 billion range?
Yeah, they're in the billions. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's not
can't
an
remember what
issue.
it is. Obviously,
But,
they're academic. They're all
right.
the placards and everything. For
Yeah,
sure,
but
the
I think
award.
you're right. Their independence in football makes them special. But so did BYU's independence in football, Bomber.
They're different, though. I would love to compare them as equals, but they're not equals.
Well, and they get money. I'm not going to name them, but from an organization that starts with a C, right? Just like BYU gets money from an organization that starts with an M. Like that's a ton of money.
Well, it's not an M actually, but yes, you're right. The difference is BYU does not. BYU doesn't directly get money from the church. Athletics runs itself,
Okay.
and it's donations.
You were talking about their endowments, though, right?
Yeah, BYU's endowment's pretty big.
Yeah, that's what I
It's one of
thought.
the biggest in the Big 12, certainly. And education is not going to keep them out of any conference, in my opinion.
All right, let's not get into endowment size, gentlemen. People get endowment heavy. And
What can you say? It's pretty
certainly
big.
You two guys are biggest in the room. I bow. No big deal. Tempest says UGA doesn't want FSU, but ESPN trumps them all, and they want them. So he's saying the SEC, ESPN is driving the need for Tempest. Sorry, for FSU. Yeah.
Ooh, but do you want to talk about a heated game if they were to join the SEC, UGA, FSU, if they were scheduled year one after that Orange Bowl and those fan bases went at it?
Right.
That would be entertaining to watch.
The fans fighting or the football teams?
Both, because their fans are very similar.
Right.
Just as an outsider looking in.
Right.
Yeah, I'll put it this way: Texas A&M didn't want Texas in the SEC.
Yeah.
Correct.
Ohio State didn't want Oregon in the Big Ten.
Look, who in the SEC really wants Clemson and Florida State? They already own those markets in more ways
I got
than
you.
one.
I understand that, Bomber. But if someone comes up to you and says we can give your school $25 million more in media money by adding these two teams, I mean, hell.
I mean that is
Lucky
different.
that
Notre
check.
Dame's in a different league in that regard. I agree. Florida State and Clemson probably have a number associated with them for those both leagues.
So can I ask a question? Because I'm not, again, as educated as you guys are. When you add teams to your conference, all those teams have to vote on letting a team in their conference, right?
They do vote, yeah.
Independent of the media deal.
Well, they're
They
a
do.
conference. Yeah.
The way it's set up in the Big Ten, the chancellors all get a vote. Now, here's the thing: every vote has always been unanimous.
Oh,
Never had a dissenting vote publicly.
Right. You only need 75%, but you never had a dissenting vote.
well, that would be another question then. Do you think with the ACC implosion and how crazy a lot of this might get, you will have your first dissenting votes to add a team into a conference?
Well, it's
No.
already happened in the ACC.
Well, in the ACC, yeah.
Florida
talking
State
about
voted against SMU.
in the SEC or Big Ten. Do you think there could be a
Oh,
dissenting vote?
I think you might have a straw poll where there's dissenting votes, but the
Yeah.
actual vote to let somebody in, I think it's going to be unanimous because they want to project unity in the conference.
I would agree with that. And the exemplar you could point to is Texas A&M did not want Texas in, and yet we heard they were included unanimously.
Yeah, that's
So-
true. If Texas A&M wouldn't vote no on Texas publicly,
Right.
and we know they can't stand them, you're probably right.
Which is why Florida State and Clemson, again, might get in. There's people who might not want them, but in the larger college football world, that's where that matters, right? Those
Yeah.
teams are more valuable. All right, last comment, and then we're going to get out of here. OPD Don says 118 meetings, darn Cajun math, Georgia Tech. So inflated those numbers a little bit, but
Cajun math. Oh, from the earlier comment.
yeah, that's from earlier. All right, Rec, we are literally at the end of the show. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff and anything else you want, shoe size, whatever's on your mind.
So I wear a size 12.
Okay.
I'm 6'2" and
Okay.
about 280 pounds. If anyone wanted to know, you want to come down to Smyrna, Georgia, and test me. And like what I said, you can come do that. And you can come find me here on YouTube. Look, I espouse my ignorance on my own channel nonstop. So if you want to come there, we talk. We got some good videos coming up, actually. We're going to be ranking fan bases. If you guys know who Carolina Jackpot is, probably one of the most entertaining YouTubers I know of. We're going to be ranking fan bases from most obnoxious to you'd want to go to an away game. You can find me on Twitter. I'm not as active on Twitter, but you can find me on Twitter at @rec_talk. And I'll end with this because I put this on Twitter today. Anytime you hear someone say, "Hey, big man," they're trying to get money from you. Guaranteed.
Words to live by, I would say. Moen, you came in for just a splash and a sizzle.
Yeah, I'm about 5'11",
Ding.
260 pounds, triple extra sexy, and I live in the Appalachians of Ohio. And if you want to come test me, I got a beagleier that's about 20 pounds overweight. He will love you to death.
I love it.
And that's all I got to say. But I got to play one thing for
Go ahead, please.
Rec Talk here.
Ramble.
Like all the giant fellows, I drink my whiskey clear. I'm a rambling wreck from Georgia, taking a hell of an engineer.
Hey, and I am.
I appreciate everybody. 3 hours, another full day. But I appreciate all the super chats, all the new memberships. Moen, I don't know if you checked that out, but our memberships blew up today with gifts.
Yeah,
Quickly
we got
name those
to do
people.
more emotes. We need to
Yeah,
get some
let's
ideas
go.
for emotes, guys.
Stormy Cyclone, Rock and Rant, Bill G, Earl Carr, MBM, Carrigo Knowles, Bo Weevil, Carrigo Knowles again. Monopoly gave 5 memberships. College football, I'm tired. Flug Empire, Peek Around the Corner, Greg Flugar, Carrigo Knowles a million times, the Line Eye Ted, Becky Go Huskies rounded that out. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, especially Rec. We'll do this again. Have to get you and Coach back together, and we can talk more ACC demise sometime in the near future.
Joy.
All right. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. And tomorrow night here, 8 p.m., Bob Thompson, the OG. Look him up on Twitter. Look him up on Wikipedia if you want. Bob Thompson, Fox Sports president, retired, will be on the horn with me tomorrow, sitting in where Rhett Cock's sitting right now. And we're going to talk, who knows what we're going to talk about. So I appreciate that. That's insider knowledge. Don't share it with anybody else. Have a great night. Stay out of trouble. Rec, Moen, peace out.
Peace out.